organization, and really nice to see you. Angela, if you can also rename yourself, first name and last name, that would be wonderful. Thank you for that. I see Kieran Hawkins has his camera on. Good morning to you too. Hi.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not used to Zoom much, and sorry, did you want me to talk now?
Not you in particular, but for sure. Thank you for taking the floor. We see you very well. We also see your first name and last name. Maybe you can also add the country that you come from.
Okay.
For Zoom.
Okay, so I'm from the Czech Republic, and I just joined half a minute ago. So I thought it's starting 9:30. So
we are starting in 1 minute. So get ready.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Recording in progress.
So we are about to start in a minute. I see already the numbers are rising. Please name yourself, make yourself comfortable, and add your first name, last name, and your organization for those newcomers at the moment. We are very excited to have you, all of us, and we will be starting quite soon. So stay there and feel free to use the chat functionality to talk to us and comment on the different aspects of the research we will be sharing throughout the day. So we are ready to start.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to CEDEFOP's workshop, Microcredentials and the Future of Learning. My name is George Kostakis, and I'm the coordinator in CEDEFOP's Department for VET and Qualifications. CEDEFOP is the European agency that supports the development and implementation of VET, skills, and qualification policies. And this year, we celebrate our 50th birthday. This workshop is another opportunity for us to celebrate, as we have attracted interest from hundreds of people, not just from Europe, but around the world, US, Australia, South Africa. We've seen a number of you in the chat a few minutes ago. So thank you for being with us. A warm welcome to everyone. Let me give you a little bit of a context and the objectives of today's workshop. We organized this event in a very good moment as microcredentials gain momentum in education and training policy. Today, we will have a forward-looking discussion on the evolving role of microcredentials in supporting labor market needs and relevant learning, including in the context of vocational education and training. We will explore their potential to respond to the demands of fast-changing labor markets, digital transformation, demographic shifts, and the growing need for up and reskilling. The workshop will present to you CEDEFOP's ongoing study on microcredentials, and it will provide valuable insights into current trends, challenges, and opportunities. It serves as a space for dialogue, reflection, and exchange, inviting your contributions. You will have the opportunity to take part in 4 breakout sessions, and I invite you to actively participate in the discussions. We will use all this input to support our research and also the European Commission in developing the European VET strategy and the skills portability initiative of the Union of Skills. You will hear more about that in a while from the European Commission. Now, let's spend some time to look at the housekeeping rules, and I would like to invite my colleagues to share them on the screen. Very good, thank you. So if you have not done it already, please rename yourself, showing your name, your country, or your organization. To participate in the discussions, raise your hand in the dedicated Q&A sessions at the plenary and in the breakout sessions. When you speak, switch on your camera, And but when you're not speaking, mute your microphone. Use the chat to express your opinion or ask a question, and we will also interact with you using Slido. I'd like to invite you to spread the word of what we are discussing today in social media using hashtag microcredentials, hashtag CEDEFOP50, tagging also CEDEFOP whenever you do so. Please note that this event is being recorded and it's also live streamed. But this is all with the housekeeping rules. So we can get them off the slide. Excellent. So with no further ado, I would like to invite our Deputy Director, Mara Bruja, to welcome you with the opening speech. Mara, would you like to join us?
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you, Yorgos. Do you see me and do you hear me well?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you. So good morning also from my side. On behalf of CEDEFOP, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all to this online workshop on microcredentials. As we know, until more or less 5 years ago at European level, microcredentials had mainly been discussed within the higher education sector. But as digitalization or climate change, demographic shifts and the pandemic have highlighted the massive need for the EU workforce to upskill and reskill, the potential of microcredentials to support learning for employment has become a keen interest on the European skills agenda. And this is why building on our long-standing work at CEDEFOP on learning outcomes, qualifications, and validation of non-formal and informal learning, we started exploring how microcredentials can support labor market related learning and employment relevant learning in fast changing environments. And currently we are looking at microcredentials that emerge outside formal education and training, and our focus is on specific labor market sectors and independent initiatives of companies and professional bodies. As we know, and as also our research shows, in recent years, microcredentials have multiplied and have spread across economic sectors and across education levels. And so these small units of learning are seen as complementing formal education and qualification systems because they offer targeted training in a flexible way. And this explains the high interest in microcredentials among education and training stakeholders, but also in the business community. And the fact that 660 participants registered to our event today, policymakers, social partners, experts and researchers from education and training industry from more than 60 countries, reflects precisely this high interest in microcredentials, and it also demonstrates that in fact microcredentials are an issue of global interest. So this is why today's event provides a timely opportunity to discuss in particular first findings of our current study at CEDEFOP on the profile and the function of microcredentials beyond formal education and training, as well as the role of assuring their quality and recognition. In particular, we will discuss microcredentials in relation to specific labor market sectors and also address their potential to promote social inclusion, particularly among disadvantaged groups. Microcredentials fall, I would say, between formal and non-formal settings, with multiple purposes and areas of use, multiple target groups and multiple providers. And they give people the possibility to collect and combine small units of learning according to their specific needs. And so microcredentials are also promoted as, I would say, building blocks facilitating alternative learning pathways. But there is still a lot of work to be done. There is still insufficient evidence about their impact, and various questions still remain open and unanswered. For example, are micro-credentials seen as tools to recognize prior learning and skills? Or are they seen as tools to access education and employment more easily? Or again, how best to support learners with different profiles and skills level who need to upskill and reskill, or employers looking for ways to fill skill gaps to build trust in micro-credentials. And trust is a key issue because, in fact, it is a prerequisite for micro-credentials to be accepted. But different stakeholders may have different perspectives on the usefulness of micro-credentials. Therefore, ensuring alignment between them or bringing these different perspectives together is essential, in our view, to unlock various opportunities for lifelong learners. And today we want to focus on the more directly labor market related use of micro-credentials and discuss their strengths, but also their limitations. And this includes, first of all, the importance of internal and external quality assurance mechanisms, which also the EU Council recommendation on micro-credentials explicitly refers to, but it also includes the necessity to involve labor market stakeholders. And closely linked to quality assurance arrangements are recognition and portability of micro-credentials, because the possibility to take them along is crucial for their value, in the sense that without recognition, micro-credentials cannot be integrated into national learning ecosystems. And at EU level, as Anna will certainly explain in a few moments, further action will be taken to further boost efforts to recognize and value different types of learning. And I think we can all agree that the labor market relevance of micro-credentials is crucial for the twin transition and also for the changing skills demand that this transition entails, because micro-credentials can help increase employability, may lead to higher wages and also to higher quality employment. But this relevance depends very crucially on social dialogue, on sectoral and cross-industry social dialogue involving workers and employers from both the private and the public sectors, small and medium-sized enterprises, and professional and managerial staff. And building on CEDEFOP's research on manufacturing, but also on the retail sector, today we will dig deeper to understand better the variety of options available to individuals in two other occupational areas, mainly the construction sector and creative and cultural industries. So today, CEDEFOP's experts, but also policymakers and practitioners, will share some initial study findings, as well as insights and experiences from different contexts across Europe. We intend, as Yorgos was saying, this event to be interactive. So your ideas, your questions, your experiences are very welcome. And the goal, our goal today is to come up with suggestions for the way forward to support stakeholders in addressing future challenges and opportunities. And for sure, our discussions today will enrich our work at CEDEFOP, so CEDEFOP further work to understand better how micro-credentials can support labor market related and employment relevant learning. And this will help us to identify practical ways to make micro-credentials more effective and inform policy options to support this process. So let me close this opening remarks by thanking you all in advance for your active participation. I think and I believe that together we really have an opportunity to reimagine the role of micro-credentials, not just as abstract instruments, but also as a way to address challenges that we share globally, be it digitalization or the greening of the economy or the dynamic labor market or demographic shifts, which all require continuous upscaling and reskilling of our workforce, also to close the skill gaps. So I wish you all fruitful and inspiring discussions. I very much look forward to the outcomes, and let's go for micro-credentials together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you for your belief in micro-credentials. Thank you for joining us and setting the scene. I fully agree with you that they hold a tremendous potential, not merely as tools for learning, but also as pathways to bridge the skills gaps and help navigate evolving current demands and global challenges. And now I'd like to move to the next session to understand the policy context within which micro-credentials operate. How can the European Union member states and social partners support the expansion of learning opportunities for individuals, promoting inclusiveness, equal access to up and reskilling? And for that, I would like to invite Anna Bancic from the European Commission in DG Employment. Anna is the head of unit for vocational education and training, skills portability, and CENTEFOP. I see you're already with us. Thank you for joining us, Anna. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, George. I hope that you can hear me well. And I wanted to check with Anastasia if you could share my presentation. That would be very nice.
Yes, we will share it.
Yes,
That's great.
yes, Anna. There you are.
Thank you so much. Okay, so yes, I wanted to give you today a little bit of a context on where we stand with the work on micro-credentials on EU level, what has been done so far, what are our basics, what we are doing, and also what are the outlooks, because as Mara was also saying, micro-credentials are for us as well a key element of skills policy, and we are looking forward to taking them further in supporting employability in EU labor markets. So we could go to the next slide. Starting from the basics, so why are micro-credentials important in the EU, and also what we mean by micro-credentials, because sometimes it can be a bit confusing, you know, what we are actually talking about. Are we talking about the short flexible training courses, or are we actually talking about the actual credentials that the learner acquires after completing one of those short training courses? I think at the EU policy framework level, it's quite clear. We are talking about micro-credentials as the records of the learning outcomes that the learning has acquired following a small volume of learning. However, both aspects are actually equally important in the EU when it comes to development and circulation of skills. So on the one hand, the flexible and targeted nature of short training courses leading to micro-credentials are seen as tools to facilitate access to quality lifelong learning for all, and they are therefore a key tool that the EU wants to use to match the rapidly changing skills needs of the labor market. And on the other hand, micro-credentials as the records can actually facilitate a way to signal and understand skills in the labor market that are important for the circulation of skills. And that's what the EU approach to micro-credentials as set out in the 2022 Council recommendation is about. And my next slide gives a little bit more insight into this. So as I say, we have the 2022 recommendation on the European approach to micro-credentials and the three key building blocks. First of all, the common definition with micro-credential meaning the record of the learning outcomes. Those learning outcomes will have been assessed against transparent and clearly defined criteria. Learning experiences leading to micro-credentials are designed to provide the learner with special knowledge, skills, and competences to respond to societal, personal, cultural, or labor market needs. Microcredentials are owned by the learner, can be shared, and are portable. They may be standalone or combined into larger credentials. They are underpinned by quality assurance following agreed standards in the relevant sector or area of activity. So that's the first building block, the common understanding of what a microcredential is. Secondly, we have the standard elements, 11 standard elements describing microcredentials, such as identification of learner, title of the microcredential, awarding bodies, learning outcomes, and so on. And the third key element are the principles for designing and issuing microcredentials, with quality being the core of the European approach to microcredentials. And I think that's also what both Mara and George were mentioning. We need trust in those tools for them to be useful, and that comes by ensuring good quality of the microcredentials. So we go to the next slide, and that's just to show you a bit, the development of this policy. The recommendation was adopted as part of the European Skills Agenda of 2020-2025. It was, of course, also important in the context of European Year of Skills, where we talked a lot about the importance of lifelong learning, and the EU approach to microcredential formed a central part of our communication efforts as well. And now the newest kid on the block is the Union of Skills, the communication from March 2025 that also refers to microcredentials. The next slide gives you just a reminder of what the Union of Skills was about. My presentation today is not about this, just to recall that it was one of the 3 major initiatives presented by this Commission within its first 100 days, alongside the Competitiveness Compass and the Clean Industrial Deal. The Union of Skills highlights that skills are a key enabler of competitiveness, and also highlights the urgency of addressing skills and labor shortages in the EU. And it aims to set out a holistic vision and a plan to promote a union of all skills at all levels and all stages of life, no matter how they were acquired, and without borders. And also to ensure that EU successfully retains and attracts talent. Where are the micro-credentials in this? In the next slide, you have a bit more detail on that. Specifically on micro-credentials, the idea of the Union of Skills is, first of all, to expand their use as flexible learning solutions in line with the European approach, to ensure that they are trusted, that they are understandable, that they are issued digitally and comparable across sectors and countries. This will require actively engaging all types of micro-credential providers, notably private training providers on top of education and training institutions. Clearly, the idea is, as well as Mara was saying at the beginning, to go beyond, the traditional, the origins maybe of micro-credentials in the higher education, and look at VET as well and adult learning. Where relevant, micro-credentials, as set out in the vision and the Union of Skills, should be linked to national and European qualifications frameworks. And we should also work on more guidance on quality assurance instruments to enhance trust and take-up of micro-credentials in recruitment processes. And finally, the aim also would be to increase the number of joint micro-credentials issued by centers of vocational excellence, European University Alliances, and EU skills academies, and increase their business use in recruitment and career promotion, focusing in particular on strategic sectors. So going back a bit into what we are doing in practice, in my next slide, I give you a bit of an overview of the peer learning activities. We have been organizing those for a while now to make sure that we can facilitate the sharing of good practices between member states and other stakeholders. We are cooperating very closely with CEDEFOP on those, so many thanks for good work together on that. The first one that we actually jointly organized with CEDEFOP was to offer participants insight into the European policy framework on microcredentials, as well as on CEDEFOP research on microcredentials for labor market and for labor market education and training. We had there some examples on the use of microcredentials in manufacturing and retail sectors. Then last year in May, we had a peer learning activity where the focus was on discussing successful approaches to building trust in microcredentials that are offered in close connections with the labor market, with also the idea of enhancing employability. There we had examples from Croatia, who was the virtual host country, Estonia and Denmark. And CEDEFOP also introduced its work on research work on microcredentials and experiences from the Erasmus Plus project. Skills for long-term unemployed were presented. And finally, our latest peer learning activities, whose synthesis report is now available on our website, and I would invite you to have a look at it, explored successful approaches to engaging stakeholders and to quality assurance for delivering on the potential of microcredentials. And there we had presentations on the developments from the Netherlands, who was the virtual host country, Italy and Slovakia, and we had also some insights into current approaches in Greece and Slovenia. So all these opportunities, I think, are very important for us to gather more knowledge about the actual use on microcredentials. And that's not all, of course. Next slide shows some further ongoing work that I wanted to highlight to you. So first of all, the report on the state of implementation of the Council recommendation on microcredentials is now in its final stages before publication. It is based on a survey to all member states on what is happening regarding microcredentials in higher education, but also in VET and in the labor market. We are working on a new website, on new content for our website to better disseminate the EU approach to microcredentials, as well as to showcase some tools and resources that could be useful for all of you who are working on microcredentials. We have at the moment as well 17 Erasmus Plus projects, and we are working as well on drafting future calls that will be relevant for microcredentials. And then last but not least, we are working on a skills portability initiative. This is something that was announced in the Union of Skills and now is part officially of the Commission work program as a part of a bigger package on fair labor mobility. And there microcredentials are I think have a great potential to play quite a central role. And that will lead me to my last slide, because I think I already took a lot of your time on the microcredential aspects under the skills portability initiative. Just to recall that the main aim of this initiative will be to remove the barriers to the free movement of workers that are related to qualifications and skills. There are several challenges that we want to tackle, but one of them is indeed the fact that we have valuable skills that are acquired through work or non-formal training that often remain hidden or not evenly understood throughout the EU. This builds on findings of the report of Professor Draghi that was published in 2024 on the future of European competitiveness, which argued that to maximize employability, a common system of certification should be introduced to make the skills acquired through training programs easily understandable by prospective employers throughout the EU. And when you think about, what he's saying, that's actually the essence of the rationale for the Council recommendation on EU approach to microcredentials. What can we do in practice? This is still work going on. You have, I think, Anastasia, if you move a bit your forward, you will see a couple of points there that actually point to the possible solutions that we could explore in this initiative. So first of all, looking at ensuring how microcredentials can be designed and issued in line with the EU approach and can be included actually in the national qualifications framework. Secondly, ensuring that quality assurance mechanisms are adapted to the reality of different types of training providers of microcredentials. Thirdly, ensuring that member states have accessible systems in place for validations of skills that include possibilities to obtain microcredentials through recognition of prior learning and validation of non-formal informal learning. And finally, another possibility would be to look at how to ensure that the outcomes of official skills validation processes are a credential that is common throughout the EU, and that can be also issued in a micro and digital format. So this is what we are starting to look at. There is still a lot of opening for other ideas, so I would invite all of you to contribute to this, also to the discussion today, as well as through a public consultation on skills portability initiative, which should be launched, I hope, next month already, and will run for 3 months. Where you will be able to also express your ideas. I have seen somewhere in the chat that somebody during Mara's presentation was saying that yes, portability is key for the success of microcredentials. So now we have an opportunity to work on this. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a successful and interesting event. My colleague Isa Ladron, I think, is going to be staying throughout the presentation, so and will be taking part in the discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. It's for setting so clearly the context within which microcredentials operate. Indeed, they boost lifelong learning and increase portability of skills, a key objective currently in EU policy to increase Europe's competitiveness, as you were saying, in line with the Draghi report. While you were talking, I've seen quite a few reactions in the chat. Participants are warming up. They're talking about the importance of non-formal learning, the importance of recognition and portability of skills. And this is, in a way, giving us the floor for the next session, where my colleagues Anastasia Pouliou and Iraklis Pliakis will be presenting the evidence from CEDEFOP's research. And with that, I'd like to invite them. I think Anastasia will be the one who will first take the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yorgos.
And show us the way.
Yes. So before I give also the floor to my colleague Iraklis to join me in the discussion, just before that, I have a surprise for our participants. So for that, I would like to ask my dear colleague Alicia, a young lady who just recently joined our team, to join me in this session where we will try to prepare some very nice questions we have for you. There is some magic going on, as we say usually in the background. So my magician will actually generate a very nice Slido that we have created for you at the moment, dear participants. And actually, what I'd like you to do at the moment is to scan the QR code that you see in your screen. And also you can join us by writing slido.com and using the hashtag and the numbers that you can see in order to access the Slido that we have prepared. So we will also have that in the chat. And in the meantime, I will ask my magician to do the first trick. Yes, there he is. And at the same time, I would like to see also Alicia's, let's say, face next to me while we are doing this Slido. So
yes,
hello, Alicia. Hello. So my very first question to all of you would be, first of all, if you are really aware of this concept, how familiar are you with microcredentials? Of course, we heard a lot about about this term already from Mara Bruzia and George Kostakis, my colleague, and of course, Anna Basnik. So you have already some idea of the whole, let's say, context, but are you really aware of what it is, how it is conceptualized, what it really means? Let's see, Alicia, what is happening in the slide? What can you see here?
Yeah, we can see that most people are very familiar, which is good. It's also okay for those that still don't know, because this is what today's event is for. So you're in the right place.
Yes, exactly. So we see like there's let's say the participants are somehow split in two. So some of them really are very familiar. They know the characteristics, perhaps the elements, or let's say the related discussions around the topic. But there are some that still might have an idea. What do you think about people that might not be familiar at all? That's a small percentage that we see, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised because I do feel like micro-credentials can feel a bit more of an abstract concept, as Anna already mentioned before. But yes, I can see that most people are somewhat familiar, very familiar.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
very good.
Very well. And some people, of course, some participants have heard of them, but not sure what they are. So as you rightly said, Alicia, we are here exactly to give more insights on our research. Very well. Let's go to the next question because we don't want to keep it very long. Very well. The magic is there. So in your view, what is the main value of micro-credentials? Dear participants, of course, I could ask you to select all of those, but we wanted a bit from you, like, let's say, to highlight for us mainly the two most important ones. Is it, for instance, recognition, as we see here, or I don't know, like flexibility in learning? Let's give some seconds to our participants. Alicia, what do you think already from the first result?
Yes, we see a lot of diversity in opinions here. Flexibility in learning, of course, makes a lot of sense. I know that for young people like me, it's very important that the very nature of micro credentials is something personalized, practical.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. As you rightly point out, the flexible nature of micro-credentials is something really important and quite often appears as the main value. All right, what about the other results? Although, yeah, flexibility
We
in learning.
see, yes, recognition also
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense since value depends on recognition.
And also recognition is at a very, let's say, high level, at the center stage of attention at the moment, always considering what Anna showed before, the Union of Skills document, the Skills Portability Initiative. So this is interesting for us to learn. And but I do see that participants are also, let's say, touching upon the employability aspect and the lifelong learning, let's say, context a bit in a smaller percentage. But already we have some nice results. Very well. We can ask participants to still add their replies, and then we can move to the last one, to the last question that we have ready for you. Yes, exactly. Let's talk about challenges. Let's talk about barriers. What do the participants really think about the biggest barriers to the wider adoption of micro-credentials? Let's see, Alicia, what the participants have to say.
Okay. Lack of quality
Quality.
assurance.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We all know, we all talk about it. If you don't have quality, how can you trust micro credentials? But it's not only that. Perhaps we see other replies coming in. I see also fragmented standards, like this idea of not being able to transfer across different learning contexts, the micro credentials you have acquired. That can be also an important barrier.
Yes, very interesting. A lot of them are, of course, interlinked. So it makes it a lot of sense that there's a lot of diversity in answers here.
I'm very happy also to see in from the replies of the participants that inconsistent terminology, which used to be a very important barrier in the past, is no longer the case. Somehow terms are more clear. Let's say the definition, the European Council recommendation on the topic has supported a lot the understanding and the awareness of the term. But still, you see, Alicia, the highlighted bar is the one on standards, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the idea of lacking portability in that sense. Very, very well. Thank you all so much for trying to add your replies. We will keep the Slido open, of course, for you to still add your reflections. And thank you very much. Thanks to you, Alicia, for being with me in this short session.
Thank
And
you.
now I will ask my colleague Iraklis, of course, to join me in this important presentation of CEDEFOB research, and also Gerd Jan Lindeboom, who is also the project leader from the research side and has been supporting us a lot in let's say, creating complete, let's say, research tools and trying to design together with CEDEFOB all this important research. So without further delay, I will also now share my screen. And of course, in the meantime, we can also see Gerd Jan. Iraklis, how are you feeling? You're with me?
Fine. I'm really happy to see so many participants here today with us. And I hope that they will be interested in our presentation. So please, Anastasia.
All right, very well. Irakli, do you see this screen in full slide? Yes?
Yes, yes, absolutely
And
fine.
I also see Gerd-Jan in the meantime. Wonderful. The whole team is here. So without further delay, dear participants, we are here to present to you, well, not the full findings, let's say the more advanced picture of our second stage of research. As you know, we have already been investigating this topic since 2019-20, but still we are now in the second phase, and today we will present to you some initial towards interim findings of what we have understood, specifically on how micro-credentials are important with regards to the future of learning, but not only to the way people are trained, to the way of upskilling and reskilling will be made not only currently, but also in the next coming period. So let me move the slide. So as you can see from this nice picture, we understand that micro-credential is not something new. They have actually tried to become, let's say, an important point of discussion, but I don't know whether they can really be something of a big deal, let's say, because if we think that already many years now, the industries, let's say the labor market side of the economy has been trying to, let's say, develop different industry type certification, professional certificates. So it was not necessarily something new, but what is really new, what is really novel with this discussion is how do you really make your skills and competencies visible? What this nice little icon on the left side of the slide shows, how can you really show what you already know now to the employer, or perhaps, let's say, to the education and training institution. So our study, as I said, started quite a long time ago, already 2020, where we were trying to understand better the topic, and we were exploring different dimensions of the discussion. First of all, what do member states representatives are telling us with regards to the concept of micro-credentials, what it really is, how it links with qualification systems, and of course, what is the added value for the end user. So that research has already been finalized, and at the same time, CEDEFOP has been trying to support the European Commission and all the development, the preparation of the Council recommendation on a European approach to micro-credential. We have been giving a lot of input and data with regards to vocational education and training in that regard. And of course, we are in very much close contact with representatives of member states in order to understand better, how they are trying to increasingly embed micro-credentials in their learning offers, in their important qualification systems. At the same time, currently, as I told you at the beginning, we have started our new research, which is ongoing. And the topic of this research is mainly on three main areas. First of all, we want to explore better the diversity of micro-credentials outside formal education and training. Dear participants, we think this is a very important aim because thinking of the proliferation of micro-credentials in these non-formal areas, there is an imperative need to understand their content, their profile, their characteristics, their quality assurance arrangement, and very importantly, their recognition processes if they exist. At the same time, we want to investigate more the labor market sector relevance. And last but not least, we want to understand better what is the emerging role of micro-credentials for the, let's say, the social inclusion, specifically of disadvantaged groups and disadvantaged learners. So all this, let's say, process is ongoing, it's evolving. So please stay with us and try to access all our project websites all the time to see all the new developments and insights we will have from our research. Before I give the floor to my colleague, at least just a very quick reminder that we at CEDEFOP have created a working paper about this idea of developing scenarios for the future of micro-credentials. And in this endeavor, what we tried to do was mainly to critique the emergence of micro-credentials in vocational education and training. And we wanted to shed light on learning outcomes of credential holders as they can be visualized in these four scenarios developed. And throughout the course of this speech, you understand that when we talk about micro-credentials, for example, that can be not only in the formal learning, but also outside in the non-formal, any informal settings, you might understand that these credentials might fit into scenario 2, 3, or even 4, whereas it's not only the supply side of the credentials offering, but mainly also the demand side, how, for instance, companies or industries are, let's say, preparing the training for the workforce, or in what sense these credentials can be important for vulnerable groups. So with that in mind, I will now give the floor to my colleague Iraklis to show you what we already know from our previous research with regards to the links of micro-credentials and qualification systems. Iraklis?
Thanks, Anastasia. We have been trying to explore the links with NQFs for the last years. We have our recent data, which is going to be published soon. As you can see, countries are trying to include qualifications that can be considered as micro-credentials in their framework. With dark blue color, there are 18 countries who have already done so. With a light blue color, you can see 10 countries that are in principle open to micro-credentials, but they haven't yet included them in their national qualification framework. While with darker gray, these are countries which do not yet include micro-credentials in their frameworks. What is interesting for you to know is that approximately 40% of the countries that participate in the EQF process are aiming either to open their frameworks for the first time to micro-credentials or include even more in their frameworks. Just a couple of examples. In Croatia, they include formal qualifications in their framework in the adult education, but also higher education institutions can offer lifelong learning programs. When they are linked to the NQF, they can even get funded through the voucher system. While in the Netherlands, they include non-formal micro-credentials in their framework. In order to do so, they are using the same approach as for qualifications that can be gained through longer programs. All the data are collected with the cooperation of the European Commission, ETF, and of course, the member states that participate in the EQF advisory group. And now it's the time to give the floor to Gert-Jan to present to you the methodology of the study. And please, Gert-Jan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Iraklis and Anastasia, and good morning, everyone. My name is Gert-Jan Lindeboom. I'm a project leader of the study. I work for Occam IPS, a research organization in the Netherlands, and we do this study together with partners from 3S and Ecoris. Our team members will also participate in this today's meeting later on in the group discussions, so you have good opportunity to meet more of our team. And before delving into the specific methodology and also the findings that colleagues Anastasia and Iraklis will present later, I'd like to say a few words about the focus of the study, the scope of the study. And because we're in a community of researchers, I imagine there's nothing as exciting as a nice conceptual framework. So that's what we start with here. As Anastasia said, the study really focuses on credentials outside the formal domain. And because of the diversity of concepts when we're talking about formal domain, formal learning, we felt it necessary to make a sort of a graphical presentation of where we position our study in the broader picture. Also because that helps us to compare findings across contexts. If we look at this slightly daunting picture at first, I'll try to break it down so you can perhaps come with me. If we can go back to the previous slide. Yes, thank you. So on the horizontal axis, we present here credentials that are on one side formally recognized by authorities, and on the right side, credentials that are not. Whereas in the vertical axis, so from top to bottom, we have organizations that somehow have some formal status towards those that have not. And it is our understanding that vocational education and labor market-oriented learning more broadly can be fitted in this larger square in the middle, this larger gray square. And within that square, we focus on micro-credentials, which falls into the right side of the figure. So because we are focusing on non-formal micro-credentials, of course, there are also micro-credentials that would fall on the left side of the picture. It's just that our study will not focus on those, because we are really interested in what's happening outside this formal domain in the field of labor market education and training. With that in mind, some words about the methodology of our study. We set off earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, with a literature study, scoping interviews in the spring. Many of you may have been reached in the context of an EU-wide survey that we've conducted on microcredentials. The idea of this survey was to sort of build a larger inventory of examples of microcredentials. And it's perhaps also good to know that by no means we try this to be all-encompassing, because that's too big of a task, even for a three-year research project. But what we do want to get at is an inventory that shows the diversity, the different types, the variety of different microcredentials across Europe, and in some cases beyond. So that's what this survey served to do. Inputs were complemented also by national experts to make sure that we have a good balance. And in the second phase of the study, we will also use these insights to further schedule interviews. As another part of the work consists of case studies. So we will delve into 8 country case studies where we really try to make to go to an in-depth understanding of the country context in which we can position the microcredentials that we find. And that allows us to also say a few words about the quality assurance, how recognition works in practice in those contexts. A second part of the study delves really into the 2 specific sectors. So again, we take a sort of a case study approach into 2 specific sectors, those of the construction sector and cultural creative industries, where through desk research and interviews, we really aim to understand this sectoral context and understand how it is that these microcredentials that we've also studied in work assignment 1, how that works out in practice in a specific sector. And thirdly, in the third work assignment, we want to highlight also the role of microcredentials for social inclusion. Anastasia already included social inclusion as an aspect in the Slido poll earlier. Where it was not necessarily top of mind. This is also something we see back in the first inventory. That doesn't mean that there's not there is in fact quite a potential of microcredentials also to serve this purpose. And what we're trying to look at in this work assignment 3 is to understand, first of all, whether microcredentials already serve a role like that, and also explore how this role could be further strengthened. So that's a few words about the method for this study that will run until 2027. So we have started earlier this year. We're about 1/3 of the project by now, and yeah, some very first findings will be presented by colleagues Anastasia and Herakles later this presentation. Before we do that, some final words from me on a typology. Because of the diversity of the field, the various different examples that we have, we felt at this stage it necessary to share with you an initial typology that we will use to further structure our data collection, that also may be further revised along the way, but that we feel that at this stage helps to structure and compare the initial findings. I present here 6 categories, each with their specific characteristics, in which you would be able to position these different types of microcredentials that we have found so far. I will not go in depth into these typologies today, because that way we have more time to focus specific on the findings. What I would like to show you is how we moved from these typologies that we've defined at this stage. We link them back to this conceptual framework. So we tried also to position the typology into this framework to also see how that fits in that more visual space of microcredentials. And I think if you look at this figure, you see that this typology is able to capture a substantial share of the space in this red square, which is the scope of our study. Thank you very much, and over to you, Anastasia, to say a few words about the actual first findings.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gert-Jan. Exactly. Just a bit before the finding, just also to show concretely with this slide what, well, say the different elements, the different characteristics of microcredentials in focus. focus where, what exactly we were looking for also with the different tools you mentioned before. As you can see, this is not an easy exercise. We really try to understand all the different, let's say, elements that you can see in these 8 different sections that are related to the credential issuance, like specifically on learning outcomes. We are very, let's say, putting a lot of attention on that. I think Mara Brugia mentioned that at the beginning of her speech. I think the define, let's say, the achieved learning outcomes, the way these are, let's say, presented in micro-credential offerings, any links with NQF or EQF level, as my colleague Iraklis mentioned before, is a key, let's say, focus of ours. But at the same time, we also look at other aspects like the credit burning, the notional workload, the assessment, let's say, processes, pedagogies, the way, let's say, people can use them to access, let's say, further education training, or if it can be considered, let's say, important for the labor market more broadly. So there are different angles we are actually gathering. So for you, it's just mainly to get an idea. And now we will start a bit informing to you about our findings. So Iraklis, we have created, I think, a nice picture here last night, the two of us. What about that? What can you say?
Yes. Based on the first interim findings, of course, this is subject to change. We have identified 6 key features of micro-credentials awarded outside formal education. The first that we will go a bit deeper in a while is the variety of training providers. The second is a variety of learning contexts. We have seen that quite often they are offered in an online context, but this is not the only case. They are also offered in the more traditional face-to-face mode, and most particularly, this is happening when they offer some practical skills and knowledges. Also, there is a diversity of learning formats. This diversity varies from short workshops to ECTS-based modules. And of course, it's the difference in duration. Some of them may last a few hours, a couple of days. Some of them may last for 500 hours or even more. Usually, providers that offer formal qualifications and non-formal micro-credentials tend to have longer programs, while employers, companies, or social partner organizations are offering shorter programs. From our study, what we have seen is that approximately 20% of the analyzed micro-credentials last less than 20 hours. What is interesting and I would say promising is that there is a relatively high use of learning outcomes. Approximately 70% of the analyzed micro-credentials indicate their learning outcomes, while in most of the other cases, we would say that providers try at least to present some parts of the content of the micro-credential. Another finding is that they are mainly stand-alone, and they can be stackable, but this is not the norm. Now we could go to the next slide, where we see training providers. And which are the training providers? They can be providers offering programs in the formal domain, like universities or vet institutions. There could be private training providers like academies or other providers that target companies specifically, or sectoral organizations like chambers or sectoral organization funds for training, while also employers develop their own micro-credential aiming for their internal use or sectoral use. And of course, there are NGOs and community initiatives aiming to certify some voluntary training. The first 3 options are the most common ones. In the next slide, we will see a specific example of a micro-credential developed by an employer. It's a platform with a service developed by Austrian National Railway Operator. The courses can be attended by employees, but also by other participants. And the value of the credential lies in the value attributed to the provider and its experience in working in this situation. Another interesting part of our findings includes the use of digitally verified credentials. Here we see that almost 35% of the micro-credentials are in a digital register, of those that we have analyzed, of course, in our interim findings, while 40% are offered in a digital document, a PDF, or something similar. Approximately 50% of the cases are only offered in a paper format. Higher education institutions and vet centers are mostly issuing digital credentials, while credentials issued by sectoral bodies and employers are mostly paper-based or in a PDF format, which limits external verifiability. In the next slide, what we will see is briefly some of the main functions of microcredentials. They differ among different stakeholders. Usually learners use them for upskilling and reskilling. What we have noticed is that microcredentials tend to be mainly used in sectors that labor market transitions are most pressing, implying there is a need for upskilling and reskilling. For companies, they relate them to management of the knowledge of their employees. They may be considered companies may consider sector recognized credentials and international standard-based certificates as conditions for employment or for progression, while microcredentials can also function as onboarding programs, safety certifications, and company-specific competencies. Training providers use them for innovation and for responsiveness to labor market needs, while an overall final comment from my side would be that microcredentials with a labor market orientation are not defined by a single logic, but by the interplay between stakeholders, learners, employers, training providers, and of course, the state. By this, I will give back the floor to Anastasia.
Thank you, Iraklis. In the meantime, because we are presenting, we cannot see the chat, but I'm sure, dear participants, that you are posting different comments and questions for the team. Just to inform you that we will make sure to reply all your questions, either as soon as we finish this keynote presentation throughout the day, let's say in the webinar, but also following the event, we can take record of all your comments and make sure we can address them. Just a few remarks from my side on the quality assurance and recognition perspective. These are two key areas very closely linked. You can see here, of course, the concrete questions we are asking. What are the elements to consider a credential quality assured? We find this a very important aspect. Even we're very much interested on the mechanisms or let's say the different partnerships that can be there out there so that different stakeholders can co-develop or co-design micro-credential. This is important area. But of course, recognition, as I said before, is an important element. Whether indeed micro-credentials can be a tool to recognize prior learning and competencies, this is something we are also trying to understand, let's say, and explore within this current phase of our research. And the survey results we have collected pointed already to some key aspects. Firstly, we saw that micro-credentials outside the formal learning not necessarily have these direct links with national qualification frameworks we mentioned at the moment. This is a key aspect because it's related to the diversity of micro-credentials. Quite often, the ones that are awarded through internal company training might be less likely to be portable, to be transferable. So again, this can be a challenge that has to be addressed in the future. At the same time, even the ones that are recognized within a sector might have limited portability across other sectors or borders. And training providers quite often were mentioning different administrative and regulatory burdens. So you understand there's always this need to balance the flexible nature of micro-credentials, as we saw also in the slide, with the idea of quality assurance, the recognition arrangements, and the credible side of that. Of course, there are different points to be made on quality assurance. What is very important is that accredited quality assurance system can matter a lot in that sense. And quite often the credentials that are offered, let's say, by sectoral organization more often rely on organizational standards and demands that come from the specific sectors, and these need to be considered. And in general, for all types of micro-credentials that we have explored, we saw that the degree of public involvement towards quality assurance arrangements really is shaping the value and the trust in those credentials. Of course, there are concrete examples for pilot country cases that you can see in the slide, but we will also have the opportunity to show to you when our research is, let's say, developing more in the analytical part, and we will try to, let's say, publish the different results as the analysis will be proceeding. Of course, we are also using different tools and templates to ask about quality assurance arrangements, about their features, the processes, the outcomes, and other aspects related to internal and external quality assurance arrangements. But we should not forget that our study overlooks more broadly to the labor market side. We are very much interested to sector-specific micro-credentials and understand better how occupation or job-specific learning outcomes, or perhaps the focus would be on the more transversal skills and competencies that we can see in the different occupational sectors we're exploring. This is a very important aspect and very much linked to recruitment processes. And for this reason, what we have been trying to do is to delve into construction sector with a focus on greening with the current research, and also on the cultural and creative industries. Of course, there are reasons why we are selecting the different sectors. For example, creative and cultural industries, as you can see here more in the breakout session one later today, is a very broad sector that combines a lot of artistic and cultural creativity elements that we can find being evident in other occupational sectors. Whereas if you go, for example, in the construction sector, you see a different perspective, but it's equally interesting. But this, again, is a very widespread occupational sector with large and small employers, with a huge, let's say, number, like millions of people being employed in the sector. And that is why this need for upskilling and reskilling and meeting the demands of the green and the digital transformation, all the more make it more important to discuss the micro-credential offerings and the concrete issues related to the sector. And as Gerd-Jan mentioned before, and also my colleague Iraklis, we are very much interested on the social inclusion perspective. And for this, we will be connected with the ReferNet network in a minute or so. To share some insight with us on that important angle, whether indeed micro-credentials can facilitate lifelong and life-wide learning, specifically of disadvantaged individuals, and what are the, let's say, support measures that can be allowed to support them. Well, the overall reflection is that, the whole discussion is about a whole ecosystem that is being, let's say, shaped at the moment. We understand, of course, that in order for a micro-credential ecosystem to emerge, there are different conditions and different arrangements to be considered. First of all, the degree of the state involvement, what is happening at the national level, the strength, of course, of sectoral coordination. Imagine that when we are exploring the labor market sectors, we definitely need to understand all, let's say, the mechanisms, the partnerships, but the partnerships that exist within the sectors, and of course the way validation systems are structured. All of these, let's say, angles really shape how quality is defined and how trust of micro-credentials can be maintained. Of course, these examples that we have collected indeed point to a large diversity of credentials out there. And of course, the mix of providers we have already seen is a bit broad, but at the same time quite uneven. And that points to an important, let's say, focus on understanding better the current situation. And with regards to recognition, indeed, at this moment, it might stay a bit fragmented, but let's understand it better. So without further delay, and just showing you that slide, I will stop sharing my screen. Of course, the future of micro-credential is indeed bright. It can be considered an important instrument to allow learners really, to engage better in lifelong learning and the upskilling. But our project base can show you, let's say, more insights as they will be coming throughout the year. Now, we will not have a lot of time for Q&A session, but please rest assured that we will be addressing all your comments in the chat. I see there is a lot of activity happening, and we will try to do so also during our breaks and during the later session of today's discussion. So I would like to thank my colleague Iraklis and Gerd-Jan at the moment. This has been a long journey. It's not easy to capture all this research in a short presentation, but I see some hands raised that it is very well received. But do you mind, Gerd-Jan and Iraklis, if now we just switch a bit our mode and try to get connected with another event that is taking place in parallel, which actually this is an important two-day physical, let's say, ReferNet plenary meeting that is actually that CEDEFOP is actually hosting with a big number of participants. So I'm wondering, there we are. Let's see if they can hear us. Yanis, where are you? I see some hands raised. Good morning, Anastasia. How are you? How is the feeling from Europa? Yes, I see some hands.
Good morning, Anastasia. Good morning to all your participants. This is ReferNet from CEDEFOP.
Yes, very good. This is also CEDEFOP calling. This is another floor. I see some hands clapping. Thank you. I would like to see the the noise that you are making. I hope our participants online can do the same. Let us clap. Let us use our online mode, the reactions, and share some hearts and hands. I don't know if you can see it, Yanis. Can you see the?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We are very happy to join you. And perhaps you, Yanis, you can maybe take a tour around the room and tell us why we need to connect with you, why referring is so important for CEDEFOP. And you have been doing so much work, you and the partners. You have been supporting our research in all the different works we have been doing. But please tell us more from your side about ReferNet.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Indeed, ReferNet is very important for the work of CEDEFOP. It is our network of expertise on VET skills and qualifications. It's a network with a 20-year history, well-rooted in the work of CEDEFOP, and he is supporting our work throughout these years. Our partners come from 29 countries. We cover all EU member states, all the 27, plus Norway and Iceland. And this is our annual plenary meeting. It's our most important meeting, and we're very, very excited to be able to connect with you. Actually, it is the very first time that we open our internal forum to the outside world, and this is a great opportunity for us to share our achievements so far. As you know, this year in our work plan, our partners have been working on micro-credentials for social inclusion, and although this is currently an ongoing work, we already have some first results that maybe we could share with you.
Yes, perfect. Are there any colleagues that would like from your side really to present our insight? Let's think of it like the Eurovision context, and our 12 points go to which country, Yanis?
I would suggest to Germany.
Yes, Germany. Of course, I would give 12 points to all countries, to all member states, but let's hear from Germany. Germany calling. There you are, Ute. Hello.
Hello. Hello to everyone. I'm Ute Hippach-Schneider from Federal Institute for Vocational Education and Training in Germany. And it's really a pleasure to contribute also in your conference. Just to have to provide some very short insights about micro-credentials and the role for inclusion in the German VET. Inclusion was always and is very, very relevant in the context of vocational education and training in Germany. When it comes to the system, there is this huge relevance of apprenticeships, and that means that the learners are paid, which is really a very important issue when it comes to inclusion. And then, of course, they are integrated during their training or their education, their apprenticeships, in company life. That means also social life, societal life. So the system is kind of tries to guarantee inclusion, or means really basically inclusion. But nevertheless, there are a lot of initiatives that support or enhance additional elements of inclusion, and numerous programs and instruments. But I have to say, when it comes to micro-credentials, the role of micro-credentials are seen as quite limited in relevance in Germany, especially in the IVET area. There are instruments that could be kind of defined or understood as micro-credentials, but nevertheless, they are integral part of the idea of what is IVET meant. And this is the idea of a holistic and comprehensive qualification, and not really learning small tasks. But when it comes to that, I'd like to mention two initiatives or programs, opportunities. For example, the so-called partial qualifications. These are is an instrument for people older than 25 years. And there people can accumulate kind of modules, and but also this system of partial qualification lead finally to a full IVET qualification. The second example I would like to share with you are the so-called compensation measures. These are measures for holders of foreign credentials. there is a kind of assessment how their foreign qualification match to the German qualification in IVET. And then when the examination comes to the conclusion that there are some missing skills or missing competences in order to gain a full German IVET qualification, there are these additional compensation measures. So the basis is always for IVET to gain for these people a full IVET qualification. So as you can see, it's kind of really limited relevance for micro-credentials there.
Yeah.
And I'd like to mention that in 2022, the German Federal Council, this is the assembly of the representative of the Bundesländer ministries, which are core responsible for their education system, they clearly speak that the use of micro-credentials in IVET and even in CVET for younger people than 25 are not relevant. They want to have any kind of micro-credentials in this area at all. So, but when it comes to people older than 25, there are a lot of existing relevant elements and tools which focus on the integration of people into the labor market. So there are certified programs for people who are unemployed or are in danger of unemployment. And these are accessible with a voucher system. But these programs are very different, heterogeneous. They're diverse regarding content, could be a language course, but also project management, very different. But they are also very diverse regarding the duration. There are programs that have a duration of 6 months or 12 months, and the question is, are these still really micro-credentials?
Yes.
So I'm a little bit, have some my doubts. And of course, we have micro-credentials in the area of higher education and of course, regarding ICT. So to sum up, micro-credentials in general have very limited relevance in the German VET system, especially in the IVET system. And that has also, of course, an impact on the question of are these micro-credentials relevant for social inclusion? Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, your reply has been more than comprehensive. Thank you also for sharing the concrete measures, the numbers. Indeed, what we consider also important from your side, the aspect that you mentioned also on the partial qualification and also this holistic, let's say, concept that is very important for the German national system. That is why we believe at CEDEFOP that the national context matters a lot. We might be exploring the whole aspect of inclusion at a European level, but we definitely need to consider your specificities, your priorities in your countries into what, let's say, broader sphere this idea or function of inclusion would fall in. Thank you so much. Which is the next country I can give my 12 points, dear Yanis? Ladies?
I would suggest that we go a bit norther than Germany this time.
Okay.
Let's go to Estonia.
Okay,
We have with us
Estonia.
Inga Cook from the Ministry of Education and Research. Inga.
Wonderful. A lady, yes. Hello, dear.
So, hello, everyone. Very glad to be a part of something bigger. I represent the Estonian Ministry of Education and Research, and I'm here to maybe give a little bit of different angle to the topic of micro-credentials. In Estonia, micro-credentials or micro-qualifications, or even micros, as we call them, are quite a recent development. They were regulated by law just last spring, and the provisions started this autumn. The implementation results are yet to be expected. Our adult education law defines a micro-credential or micro-qualification as a set of certified and recognized knowledge and skills acquired in continuing education. That corresponds to the needs of the labor market or the society. These are our kind of a topical words, and has the volume from 5 to 30 credit points. So it's a bit heftier. Vet centers and higher education institutions may deliver micro-qualification programs within the fields they are accredited for. Additionally, both can undergo quality assessment of the curriculum group and apply for a license to provide micros outside their existing mandate. Other continuing education providers are also very welcome to deliver micro-qualifications, also based on the quality assessments and activity license. And all the approved micro-qualifications are entered in the Estonian education information system. So there is a digital trail and statistics to be expected. So basically, micro-qualification are seen as continuing education that is, at one hand, more substantial and longer than regular continuing training courses, and on the other hand, more flexible and shorter than formal education, while at the same time being stackable to a full qualification. So again, a parallel to partial qualifications. They are expected to respond to today's labor market that requires more complex skills, but at the same time requires the skills quicker. Regarding to disadvantaged learners, Estonia has a long and quite successful history of state commissioned continuing education courses that have mainly targeted disadvantaged learners, adults with low level of education, outdated skills, insufficient language skills, people aged 55 plus. I'm almost there. Since this autumn, there are first state-funded, also state-funded micro-credential courses with a clear emphasis on disadvantaged learners. So 8 of our vet providers offer programs mainly to adults without upper secondary or professional qualifications or with outdated skills. And topics range from industrial automation or digitalization, digital skills and green skills to care workers. And the volumes of the micro courses are 5 to 24 credits. Also, we have some micro-credential courses under the Just Transition Fund. And those are tailored to one specific county in Estonia, Ida-Virumaa, and they address learners with whose skills have been outdated due to economic restructuring. The oil shale industry is declining in Ida-Virumaa. Also, it is planned to offer micro-qualification training on green and digital skills in that particular region. So in conclusion, Estonia has the legal and quality framework to launch micro-qualification programs. We have positive experience and rising interests in micros among advantaged learners, and positive experience in shorter continuing training for disadvantaged learners, adult learners. So with these new initiatives, we kind of hope to combine these two good practices.
Okay, very well. What I get from the Estonian case is micros. I like that label that they are using, and very, very good piece of information for our research as well, and also the fact that you mentioned the legal, let's say, framework and the quality, legalized and quality framework to launch these micro qualification programs, and at the same time the description of the short training ones for the disadvantaged. That's very, very valuable information. You see, it comes directly from the country itself. Who is best placed within the country, like a referral partner can have the overview. I know that, and also this is a message to Yanis, like the way Refernet works, like they are in a very central position in a country to talk to ministry, to talk to the people that can provide also this important piece of information. That is why we really appreciate this important input. Since we've heard two ladies already, Yanis, can I don't know, I ask maybe another country, I don't know which country we can give the other 12 points, maybe to a gentleman, I don't know, maybe you let me know, I don't know.
Yes, I would suggest that we go a bit southern this time to the center of Europe because we have with us Juraj Van Tuch from the State Institute for Vocational Education and Training of Slovakia.
Yes, all right. And in the meantime, before giving the floor to Slovakia, there are different comments and questions. The chat is really crazy with a lot of interaction. We already have a comment that is on Estonia. I will just read it, but of course, then we can come back to the Estonian part and get a reply. If we know whether Estonian higher education institutions that are working on the topic, which ones are they? For example, on the aspect of the disadvantaged learners, just keep that in mind, Inga, and then we come back to you on that important question. And the floor is back to Juraj. Juraj, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anastasia. So the micro-credential related policymaking was initiated by the State Institute back in 2017 because Slovakia also it has a very strong VET stream. The flexibility of the qualification system is not good enough. And therefore, it was necessary to introduce or to rethink how to make it more flexible. A good example is, for instance, the butcher is a 3-year training, but deboner or slaughterer, it could be shorter. These were the candidates for micro-credential almost 10 years ago. The second impulse came from socially disadvantaged troubles of socially disadvantaged learners and early leavers, because it was necessary to rethink, for instance, in agro sector or in forestry, short trainings that would allow them to get some smaller qualification. Again, a candidate for a micro certificate in IVET, and almost as a possibility for further expansion of the qualification. The stackability was the most important point. And the third impulse came from Erasmus, because there are many mobility learners who come back after longer stay abroad, and they are able to do something new. For instance, they master new technology or they master some equipment. And therefore, it was also the idea to make use of the micro-credentials for this purpose. Now, the positive is that we have a legislative backing since 2024. In the higher education, there are already changes made in the quality indicators, so they are free to offer it. It is not that favorable for the vet schools because they are unintentionally somehow discriminated. And this is because if they want to issue the certificate, they must create the internal quality assurance system. They must do a self-evaluation. They must also elaborate the sort of implementation plan. Simply some signals of introduced system of internal qualification that is typical for higher education and, for instance, for provider of adult education to achieve quality is also expected from the schools that, however, are in another regime, because the quality assurance is guaranteed by other techniques and covered by the ministry or supervised by the Ministry of Education. Now, what are the problems that, by the way, we will have since 2006 a scheme based on individual learning accounts, and it will be possible to receive the micro-credential paid from ILA. And also there is a financial scheme under preparation that will support the development of programs that lead to micro-credential, but focusing exclusively on less developed regions. This is positive. It is a little bit tricky that it should cover content-based domains of smart specialization. So definitely it is probably not that important for inclusion as we would love. Now to the situation what we have in the country concerning the legislation. I'm afraid this is only the basis and the first steps, and it will need to be refined. Why? Because the definition is not European. It is 25 lessons hours, and this is the problem for providers of blended learning opportunities. It is not supportive for mixing up parts of traditional lessons with spells of on-the-job training or with e-learning, because it's very classical. And ministry or legislature are a little bit afraid to be, I would say, more progressive. The second point, as I already mentioned, only those who are certified by the education ministry are allowed to produce micro-credential. This is the step back in comparison to the proposal the State Institute elaborated based on the comparative studies. We have studies the practice of other countries have suggested sort of two-step approach, simply to animate all providers to create micro-certificate, very softly regulated. I will not go into detail. And then to have those who are ambitious enough and they want to have registered the program as offering qualification within the qualification register to be subjected to the hard regulation. The legislation speaks only about this hard regulation, and this hard regulation is based on introducing the internal quality assurance system, and this is not very favorable for small providers, for those who are working with for simple profession in industry, for example, or in craftsmanship. So, because of lack of time, I will finish with that we are happy that we have the first step, but definitely you have to rethink the idea to make it much more flexible.
Yes, perfect. You're right. Thank you so much. And you, personally, like you have been such a wide experience. Let's say really an important research profile. You know it very well. Also, of course, the national context from your side. I remember the two of us were discussing back in 2021 also this legislative background in the country. You know, and then how things are developing. This is very important developments. At the same time, participants are very interested in all of your interventions. For each country, we receive different messages, and I would like to inform our meeting here, the online meeting, that the Refernet group is actually preparing very concrete replies on the questions on social inclusion, that important role of micro-credentials, where in those replies we'll have an analysis of the contents within each country, and this will be part of our research, and we will try to develop, let's say, country-specific reports where all the participants out there can have a closer look at what is happening in Slovakia, in Estonia, in Germany, in all the other countries. So we really thank you very much, Yuri. And because time is really my enemy at the moment, it's running like crazy, and we have to be in a break very soon. Just stay with us. I would like to give like 2 minutes only for the last, let's say, representation. Which is the last country you have as a surprise for me, Yanis? But really,
I would suggest that we continue our journey to the south, and we arrive to our favorite country, to Greece, where we have with us Antonios Glaros, coming from the National Organization for the Certification of Qualifications and Vocational Guidance.
Kalispera then to Mr. Vlachos there. There you are. Hello.
Kalispera. Thank you very much. Anastasia, I will get the 12 points because I'm going to report in 2 minutes, okay?
You're the
Is
best.
Deal?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will not waste time. As Yannis said, I'm representing EOPEP. EOPEP is the National Organization for the Certification of Qualifications of Vocational Guidance in Greece. In Greece, we, in comparison with other countries already presented, we don't have a regulation on micro-credentials. Nevertheless, we are trying to be in this way. So our organization, as ICAVET NRP in Greece, has undertaken a project. The project is, we call it Micro-CVET. The aim of the project is to link the micro-credentials concept, especially focusing in CVET sector. So our project is 3 years duration, has 3 years duration. We are in a full implementation now. We are making our efforts in order to conclude the project in August 2026. And I would like here to highlight 2 things. First of all, what is the content of the project, the main pillars of our project, and what is the ultimate goal. So our project has 4 pillars. The first pillar is that we are making a desk research and comparative analysis of all micro-credential policies, best practices that are already used in other European countries, like the colleagues have already presented, but also worldwide. The second is that we are nowadays implementing fact-finding and fact-finding survey that includes e-questionnaires, focus groups, and in-depth interviews. There we are addressing all key stakeholders, policymakers, in order to create an inception document. This inception document will be the basis for the implementation, hopefully, for the integration of microcredentials in the vet sector in Greece. This inception document will be under consultation. We will call all key stakeholders in the vet sector of Greece, here in Thessaloniki and in Athens, in order to make a consultation. After the consultation, we will have this document reviewed in ICAVET network, because I'm the NRP coordinator, ICAVET coordinator in Greece, and also I'm a member of the ICAVET steering committee. We have a very nice approach. We call it peer review. So we will call colleagues, European colleagues, other ICAVET network members. I can see also some colleagues that they are standing here with us today. We will call them to review this inception document, this work that we are doing. We will get their feedback, we will streamline our approach, and hopefully, we hope that this approach and this project will end up to legislation. And finally, because I want to end the 12 points, Anastasia, I want to be on time, I would like just to highlight our aim. Our aim is really to improve the CVET quality in Greece, to enhance the reskilling and upskilling of employees, but not only of employees, of people, and to link CVET in the labor market needs and to reduce any skill gaps in this. Okay, thank you very much.
Just made it. Yeah, okay. We were on going to the third minute, but anyway, of course, 12 points go to Greece. This is the country I also come from. Thank you all. I would like to thank all the referral partners. You have been wonderful all the years now at SEDEF, and especially with this project. It's the second round of research that we ask upon your help. Thank you for showing all these nice pictures. Let me wave at you goodbye. Let me see some hands in Europa. Are you there with me? There, that's what I'm calling. Perfect. Somebody should take a photo. A photo. Iraklis, what do we have to do now? It's a photo.
Now it's also time for our family picture.
Yes.
But I think we need some guidelines to give to colleagues.
Exactly. So there is a magician in the background of our online meeting. So for all the online participants, you will see a pop-up window saying whether you accept to take a photo. If that happens, just click yes. And I hope that Refernet would also be with us, but we will try also to have at least that window that we see now in Europa. So dear, yes, now it appeared in a screen. I click allow. I smile. Sometimes you click allow and then you're like in a weird position, but hopefully it worked. Thank you all so much for being with me. I wish you all the best. Continue the discussion in Europa. You're the best. And also we have to have a well-deserved break and coming back to you. A bit slight delay in the program, but we promise we will do our best to do it at the very end. Thank you. Goodbye. And for us, it's a short break at the moment. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Bye-bye.
Yes. And for the online meeting participants, stay, there is more coming. Don't go, just take a nice cup of coffee and join me in the rest of the day. We have so many things to share with you. So, hello everyone again. So, hello everyone. Hoping you can hear me and see me, perhaps there. Now I see myself. Hoping you're still with me. Yes, thank you. We are still. Thank you so much for being with us. Really, it's been a pleasure. And now we are 300 participants already connected. That's an amazing number. Super excited for that. I'm sorry we had like a short break, but of course the program is running. We want to keep you really engaged. Hope you have a chance to take a coffee. So at this point of the agenda, I will be very brief in explaining a bit, giving some instruction for our breakout sessions. As you know, of course, there are many topics, many issues to discuss. I was trying in the break to read some comments. We will try as much as possible to address different issues and what would be our plan. First of all, to inform you that the breakout sessions that we'll have right away will be video recorded. We will prepare video recorded sessions that we will upload in a project page. So no worries if you're unable to join another breakout session. This is totally okay. You can join one of the four, and then after at some point, like another day, you can watch the other discussions. The other thing that we would plan to do is, of course, address your written comments. So me and my colleagues and the team will try to take some time, reflect on your questions, and we'll prepare a written reply that we can also upload in our CEDEFOP project page. So please stay with us. We are here, of course, to support you in any issue or any comment. So very briefly, I will now just try again and share my screen. I think it should work fine. Right. So here you can see the screen. First of all, as I told you before, the methodology we have used, of course, is to give you the opportunity to interact with us. And for this reason, we have actually created 4 different breakout sessions. The first one that will be chaired by me is mainly talking about the labor market sector relevance of microcredentials. We find this is a very important focus. It's not only about the skills of today, but also how we can better shape the skills for tomorrow. And for this reason, we have invited very important, let's say, guests that will represent the 2 labor market sectors. And of course, there will be reporting part in the plenary. Afterwards, for those of you that have already assigned yourselves to the breakout session 2, this will be chaired by my colleague Iraklis. There, of course, we have to discuss a bit more on quality assurance arrangements of microcredentials. This is an important, let's say, focus of our work. Again, there will be 2 dedicated speakers and a reporting part at the end. The third breakout session will be chaired by my colleague, Vasilios Simeonidis. And of course, recognition, portability of microcredentials is a key aspect. You also heard a lot of insights from previously from the referent partners, but also our current research is actually touching upon these aspects. And also there were concrete questions we were asking with the microcredential survey we had this summer. So it's an important, let's say, perspective. And last but not least, of course, my colleague Zelda Zara will be chairing the last breakout session 4, where we talk about the more digital aspect, the digital innovations that might be there beyond, of course, formal education. You can all understand that we are a bit zooming in on the micro-credentials emergence outside formal education and training systems. So for this reason, what I would like you to do, of course, join the breakout session, be very active, try to use again the chat, try to raise hand, and we have concrete tools for you that we can use in order to take on board all your messages. So without further delay, I will stop sharing my screen. And there is always a magic hand, a magician that is always accompanying me in the different events. So I would like to ask my magician to do the tricks, to do the magic and try to allocate all these participants, this big number, to 4 different sessions. But please don't worry, you don't need to do anything. Everything will be taken care of, I hope. So let's start the magic. So once
breakout in progress.
4 that is about uncharted micro-credentials, digital innovation beyond formal education. And we will have approximately 50 minutes for 2 presentations and then for discussion. I'm already posting in the chat, let's say, the 2 guiding questions that we developed for this session. So we will start with 2 presentations, and then it would be very good to hear from you. You may, of course, ask questions to the speaker, but the idea is also to discuss what do you think are the benefits and challenging of issuing micro-credential in the digital format, so as a digital credentials, and how can we build interoperability and trust? So how can we leverage digitalization and interoperability to build the trust that we have seen in today's discussion? It's an important topic. Perhaps I would let me quickly share my screen, because we have also a tool, interactive tool that we can use for the session. And you should be, now I will post the link in the chat, where you can actually, so I will already share the link so that if you wish, you can add, here there are some instruction on how to use the tool. With the hand, you just move, and with the arrow, you can decide to add from here a sticky note. And you can add your comments on what you see that might be the main benefits or challenges and risk when we talk about issuing the micro-credential as a digital credentials. Said that, so yes, we are today with our rapporteur, Alexander Expert. He will be here with us. He has been involved in the micro-credential project as we discussed it today, and actually he will report back the discussion we will have. Maybe Alexander, you just want to say hello so that we can see your face.
Hi, everyone.
Great, thank you to be here. And to start, we have 2 presentations, so to kickstart really the discussion. Each presenter will take 10 minutes. And then we will open the floor for comments, questions, your reflections. So the first presentation will be by Colin Tuck. He works at Knowledge Innovation Center as a senior expert for innovation and digitalization. He was the director of the European Quality Assurance Register for Higher Education, ECHR. And in that capacity, Colin has also led the conception, implementation, and management of the database of external quality assurance results, DECAR. And in general, he has been involved in many development connected to quality assurance, also as a member of steering group for the 2015 revision of the standard and guidelines for quality assurance in higher education. But he has also been involved in numerous discussions about micro-credentials, and I'm sure his presentation will also help us to better understand what we mean when we speak about interoperability. So this interoperability to build the trust in the micro-credentials. And then the second speaker will be Michael Nowakowski. He's project leader at the National Education Research Institute in Poland, and more precisely, actually is project leader of the project Microcredentials, piloting a new solution to support lifelong learning. So highly relevant, and currently is also developing the first system in Poland for issuing digital badges in the open badge standards. So I'm sure there will be a lot of interesting developments the colleague will share. So perhaps, Colin, we can start with you, with your presentation. Perfect. So Colin, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Zelda, for the kind introduction, and to CEDEFOP for inviting me to
join and speak today. So on the topic of issuing micro-credentials in digital format, I will probably focus mainly on the challenge of trust and understanding micro-credentials, and I guess then Micha will go more into the digital format and some digital solutions as such. So as you said, Zelda, I work for the Knowledge Innovation Center. We're a partner in a project called Quality Link that is actually all about making data and information about micro-credentials and courses and learning opportunities leading to micro-credentials interoperable. The starting point of our work is that we saw that there was increasing diversity and increasing offer of micro-credentials in Europe, of course, gives a lot of more opportunities and possibilities to learners and potential learners. But at the same time, of course, the larger diversity makes the landscape more difficult to navigate and makes it underlines the importance of having clear and reliable data and information about those credentials, also as a basis for trust. And that I have to say, of course, the project that I'm saying a few words about is very much started in formal education and specifically with a focus on higher education at this moment, but that is more like a pragmatic choice because we had to start somewhere, and we think what the type of findings we had are generally applicable to all education sectors and are also something that can easily be used in non-formal education, for example. We saw that due to the let's say proliferation of micro-credentials, there is a much stronger need for clear and reliable and structured data on learning opportunities. At the same time, we see that this kind of information and also from education providers, but also quality indicators, maybe from ranking sites or from rating providers or from anyone else, at this moment rarely published in open standardized format. So we set out to work on a vision of a more open and interoperable quality data exchange in architecture for Europe. Where education providers would be encouraged to have to publish their basic information on learning opportunities and micro-credentials they offer in standardized formats, and where we also would bring in trusted other data sources. So on the one hand, maybe data sources such as DECA as a database of formal quality assurance, but also other trusted data sources, for example, there are many CDFOP data sets about skills needs and skill demands in the labor market. And we're working on a vision that different kind of data on courses and micro-credentials could be integrated and could be combined into one single aggregated open data set that would then be available both as a web portal, but also as an API for integration in other applications, for example. We see that having such a Europe-wide open data set on learning opportunities and quality of learning opportunities would really have various use cases for different types of stakeholders. I mean, it would allow providers to make their learning opportunities more visible. It would have a potential for learners to receive guidance, I mean, to find learning opportunities, also to use by guidance services. And of course, it will be quite important to create transparency both for the labor market, but also for maybe for recognition officers and others who need reliable data to be able to actually trust credentials. So in a way, I would say that having an open data set with on learning opportunities would kind of be a natural complement to having digital credentials, because of course digital credential for issuing really useful digital credential, and you would need to have that rich information about the learning opportunity and about the quality of the learning opportunity to underpin this. In this project, we looked next to working on a technical infrastructure for exchanging basic data on courses, we also looked at what are possibly relevant quality domains and indicators on credentials. We started with quite an extensive inventory of five domains of quality and various indicators under them. I think in total it was about 40 possible indicators that could be relevant for someone. And the idea of this project was not to come up with a one single definition or with a one single most important quality indicator, but rather to see what are the most relevant ones, and in the end work on something that would allow aggregating data on various indicators so that everyone who needs to make a call on quality of a credential can make up their own decision and can also use different indicators according to their own priorities. So we had like 40 potential indicators. We did, however, do some kind of a ranking to prioritize them with students and stakeholders, to some surveys and focus groups. And it's quite interesting to see that, I mean, potential students and stakeholders. There are, of course, some differences in what is maybe more important for learners, what is more important for stakeholders, but it's not totally in a different direction. I mean, we saw that, of course, having clearly defined learning objectives seems to be an indicator that's very important for everyone, and that the course content is up to date and aligns with employers' demands. So that these are things that are in the top 5 for everyone. And also information from learners, maybe more on the completion rate and
positive side, on the bright side of things, that this is where micro-credentials perhaps can interfere, like their innovative format, as you say, and these self-paced opportunities. I find that these are interesting words for us to keep. I'm wondering, is the same situation for Julie? Let's just give the floor to Julie, and then our participants, of course, can comment on both of you using the concept board that we have in place. Julie, what about you? What is happening from your perspective in the construction sector? Is this the same, I mean, in terms of challenges and barriers, or what is really happening with yourself at the moment? Tell us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Can you hear me? Just checking.
Yes.
Great. Well, actually, I think there are more common points than one might expect. So, I'll make a joke about arts and crafts. We are more on the craft side, but yeah, I think I recognize lots of things from what Becky was saying. Let me share my screen. Up. So here we are. So Europe on. So you presented us already. We are part of the construction sector, indeed, but not only. We are wider than the construction sector. We also look into infrastructure, industry, etc. Our members are national associations of electrical contractors. So in the countries which flags you can see, and I can tell you that whenever we meet, the key priority is always the lack of workforce and the lack of skills. It's a shared problem with some specificities here and there, but that's a shared problem, and that's why in all of our member associations, there's often at least one skills expert. You have to know that national associations so employers associations in our case are working more or less directly on drafting curricula. In some countries that they are really at the core of this drafting. Sometimes they are more associated, more consulted. So it depends on the culture of the country, I would say. And those national associations are often training providers, or they work very closely with a training center that they either fund or actually own. So one of the questions you were asking me are what are the specific workforce challenges for the construction sector. So I'm not saying it's only us. Of course, I think you will recognize many things that Becky already presented, but that's at least typical for us. So, well, demography, I think, is the issue that everybody sees. And we see that we have less and less people joining the labor market, and we have also we are coming at the end of the baby boomers retiring. So that's also something which is very much worrying. But again, I think this is the most shared concern. Something maybe more specific, especially in comparison with the cultural industries, is the bad image of the construction sector. Everybody or many people expect it to be dirty, painful. You have to work outside. You are not always very well considered. That's the sort of conceptions that run around our sector. Also, something which is definitely true, but is becoming, is affecting more and more applicants is, well, there's not so many options for teleworking because you have to work on site. And more generally, there's a lack of interest for vet and for technical professions. There's a lack of information, a lack of awareness on the jobs and on the career prospects. So that's something that we monitor very closely. Beyond missing workers, having difficulties recruiting workers, we also have a lack of skills because there are lots of new technologies coming. You mentioned some of the technologies we work on. It's fast evolving. There's also a lack of visibility on how viable some of those technologies are. So it has repercussions on how much we want to train people or not, depending on where this technology is going. Slow adaptation of curricula and an overall underinvestment in vets. We have some countries where actually they have quite a good level of applicants, but there are not enough schools and there are not enough teachers. Finally, there are further features that impact the construction sector's approach to labor and skills. So just like Becky said, we represent mostly very small companies. We identified that over 70% of our companies have fewer than 10 employees. And just like Becky said, again, if you go a bit more granular, you will see that many of them are very small with 1-2 employees. We also have lots of self-employed people. Another feature is that we usually navigate very local markets. You have to think about your local electrician, and they don't cross borders, and they don't actually even cross sometimes a province or region because they work very remotely, very locally, which is also an asset, of course. But this impacts how much you get trained and how much you are mobile. So because of that, because of being small companies working on usually local markets, it also means that we need to have people with very versatile skill sets. We need Swiss Army knives, people who can do lots of things at the same time. And it's true that another aspect is that we are really drone in demand. We have order books that are full a year in advance or even further. And this has an impact also on our appetite and necessity to train, because if you have full order books, do you need to upskill? And that's a question. I think it goes both ways. It can be criticized, but that's also a reality we are facing. And another aspect is if you have so much to do on your hands, do you have time to even think about training? Another aspect is that recruitment is very hard. We have few candidates, so there are not as many job offer publications as the reality of the need we have, so that there's a statistical blind spot I wanted to mention. And lots, I can't say how many, but lots of recruitment actually happen with word of mouth. And this also joins another idea, which is that there's a lot of informal on-the-job training. You start in a company and you learn a bit with the senior manager on the spot. We have to tackle the lack of workforce and the lack of skills in the construction sector because we play a central role in the energy and digital transition. I just wanted to mention this, and I actually have a nice data from Denmark. In Denmark, they identified that 81% of the decarbonization targets they put upon themselves for 2030 depend directly on electrical contractors. So we need to find those missing professionals. You were asking me what are the sectors expressed concerns on micro-credentials, and so I'm trying this novlang. I would say that micro-credentials are a UFO, an unidentified formation object. Sorry, I don't have it doesn't work with training. I needed an F. So I'll use the French. So employers have no understanding whatsoever of micro-credentials in our sector. That's what my members reported to me. Our members as associations, as skills experts, they know of it, but employers, it's just, it's flying above their heads, to continue on the metaphor. They have lots of questions. Is it more administrative burden for them because they need to be aware of more, of new types of credentials? So that's actually seen more as, what's coming on top of the rest. Is it downgrading initial education? Because we really want to promote a strong initial education, a baseline on which we can then upskill. Is it a downward slide into promoting highly specialized education and quick fixes? This is, I think, the most common concern. We don't want to have people who've been trained for 2 weeks come on our job sites. I mean, work sites are a dangerous place. Electricity hazard is real, so that's also something which is very frustrating, because of course we want more people, but we cannot just find quick fixes with people joining the industry. And finally, how can it be trusted? How can micro-credentials be trusted? And I think that's something that has been reflected upon a lot during the discussions today. So in which conditions can it be interesting? I don't know if I still have much time for that.
Yes, please. Yes, Julie,
okay.
just continue then. Yeah,
okay,
we need to Sandra.
I continue. So of course, I've been also trying to see where it can make sense. I don't want to be only critical. I wanted to bring this concern, but I don't want to be only critical. We do think there's some interest for upskilling in relation to certain technologies or products, because we are a fast-changing sector, so we acknowledge that. Maybe it can be relevant for very low-qualified people who are in a starting position, but this is only part of the solution. We don't think it. I mean, micro-credentials training low-qualified people will lead to not so quality jobs. And this does not address the main shortage that we see, which is a shortage of qualified people. So it is something that we can consider, but it's really missing a big point. And I was, we have some of our members who've actually worked on having micro-credentials help with lower qualified jobs. And that's the example I have on the box on the side. So I'll let you have a look at this. And of course, if you want this to work, I come back to the question of trust and quality insurance involving social partners such as us. Finally, the elephant in the room. So I continue with my metaphor on flying objects. I was very inspired yesterday, I think. So the elephant in the room is that, of course, upskilling is important, and that's how we can see a way forward for micro-credentials. But our main, initial, basic, paramount, essential concern is we lack people. So even before thinking of what's the next step we can implement to train people better, we need to make sure that people come into our sector. So we need more people in VET, we need more people in our sector. This also, I wanted to draw a parallel with the discussion we had a bit earlier on portability. For us, portability is not so crucial and so urgent, because we are not a very mobile labor market. We need people at local level. So and we need people everywhere. So mobility, portability, it's just displacing the problem from one region to the next. But everywhere we are in the same difficult situation of having more people join the sector. So maybe a question for me from me is actually, is there any way micro-credentials can actually help improve attraction and retention of professionals? Because this would be a good way to link your concerns and our concerns, I would say. And finally, I'm not going into any details. I just wanted to point at some literature that we published. So we've been working a lot on attractiveness. So that's the report that you can see on the left. And we issued a few statements after the Union of Skills was released back in March, especially one on micro-credentials. So that's something I'll be happy to share, but that's to support a bit my points today. And very finally, we have our summit coming in Brussels on the 19th of November, and we'll have a conference on upskilling, on growing renewable skills in the installation sector. So if that's of any interest for people living in Brussels, or for people wanting to join online, I'm happy to share the links.
Yeah, perfect. Julie, perfect. First of all, please do share the links. I would like you to share actually the link to your research, the position paper you just mentioned. Please do that in the chat if you can. And at the same time, also share with us the link to register in the event. I'm very happy to hear that it's hybrid. Quite often in Brussels, we have like many physical events. So if they can be hybrid, it can be useful also for other participants, also from other continents and places to join it. Thank you both so much. From your presentation, I actually keep the metaphors myself as well. I liked a lot the UFO thing. That's something I'm also using a lot of metaphors when I talk about micro-credentials. I like the one that talks about whether it is the emperor's new clothes, right? Like, you know, the classical fairy tale. So does it really cover something that we already know? I mean, there are different ways to go about it if you are using metaphors, but I find them quite valid because it makes us think a bit outside the box. And the UFO one that you shared, I think it's quite interesting. And I saw some participants liked a lot the questions you raised, whether it is indeed downgraded initial education. Does it really promote quick fixes? I think that, yeah, the questions and the issues you raised are very valid in that sense. And thank you both. Now, what I will do now, of course, we hear the very important presentation both by Becky and Julie. I will try and share my screen, and Alicia, my dear colleague, will add in the chat the link to the concept board we have for our discussion. Let me share first of all my screen. We have created a concept board. Actually, this is a tool that can help, let's say, a bit the discussion. Just a second to drive my different windows here and there. This is in essence a question we have for you, and this concept board mainly is just for reflection so that we continue the discussion. Mainly here we have a concrete question we are asking. Of course, I guess you are inspired by both Becky and Julie, in the sense that they were telling us the different issues they are dealing with within their specific occupational sectors, the challenges, some reflections and comments. So, but I wanted to ask you if you can use this concept board, and hoping that you have the details in the chat, that well, the idea is that you can use either the arrow to select a sticky note that we have high up in the screen. This is a sticky note that you can create a color and just write to me your thoughts, your ideas. So, or of course, you can raise your hand and just talk to us. I mean, you can select the best mode of interaction. The idea, of course, is that you can get connected with the concept board as guest if you haven't managed to do so. So the question is that let's say, what do employers and education institutions need to recognize, let's say, micro-credentials as relevant? Alicia, for you, this is the second concept board I'm sharing at the moment. It's the second question. So if you can just add that one, because we don't have that a lot of time to cover both. But I think this is a very important question. So hearing Becky and Julie's presentation, I would like us a bit to reflect. So taking into account the challenges, let's say the barriers, the issues we had to face, what do you think? How can we support this process? What is it that employers really need? Or also, if we talk about education and the educational institution, let's say the delivery side, what do they really need to recognize micro-credentials as relevant? Because I heard, let's say, the different challenges in the different parts. So just tell us what you think. Of course, you can use that concept board, and let me also use that one so that I don't interfere with sticky notes. And our technician will, Xavier, I think it's you, he will try also to put in order the different sticky notes. Just use sticky notes, add them here in this concept board, and write your thoughts. Actually, we have prepared two questions. One was, how can micro-credentials improve skill utilization? I think, yeah, this is a broader question, but more concretely, I would be interested in that specific angle. Yeah, and let's see what the participants think. And Becky and Julie, please come in, seeing the replies, although I see many people are still trying to find how to reply. The idea is that you can use at the top of the screen, let me go up that part here, the sticky note, and you just add it here with one or two words. And if it doesn't work, you can just raise your hand in that sense. So I find here an interesting point, like about a recognition. We talk about ECTS recognition. Then, of course, this is related to the higher education, like to the delivery side of things, that this is important. It's an element showing the credit allocation, the workload, the nominal workload, I guess, and this is quite important. Thank you for that reply. This is important. Yeah, okay. I see also some other comments. Direct industry involvement.
Yeah,
This
that was me, Anastasia. Just the co-design. The creative industry, like many other industries, is very pragmatic, and they need to see their own fingerprints on the credential, I think, to feel ownership and to trust it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good point. Thank you, Becky, for adding that. Indeed, so the direct industry involvement, I think employers and industry and companies need to be engaged in this process. It should be a good design process. And let's think how easy, how feasible this is in practice, of course. Let's see another comment, including micro-credentials with their learning outcomes, skills, competencies, and knowledge in final diplomas. I guess you mean the final certification, the actual credential that somebody gets, that there we should have clearly stated learning outcomes, which would mean, of course, knowledge, skills, and competencies, if this is what you mean, I guess, in that. And of course, you can, yeah, Dominica?
Sorry, so I actually, what I meant is that in the final diplomas after finishing, whether VET programs or studies, we should include the micro-credentials, the courses that the students have taken along during their studies. So it's not the certification of the micro-credential itself, but like including them as an attachment, let's say, as an appendix to the diploma. So not only this, but like a formal recognition in a form of a diploma that yes, the student took part in it. Let's say like, maybe it's not a good comparison, but alongside with other courses that the students have taken during their, or practices during their education. That's what I meant.
Very good. And thank you for clarifying. That's the whole point of the exercise, that you interact with me.
Thanks.
Indeed. And also that point links to me to the stackability aspect that we talk about micro-credentials. If they can be part of a formal degree, once this is recognized, of course, it can be part of it. Indeed. Yeah, because that was not clear. Very well. Other comments that I see in the concept board, just-in-time relevance for industry needs. Would that mean...
That was me again, Anastasia, Becky.
Yes.
Yeah, no, just it has to be quick. It has to be really quick. Things moving really fast in every sector, not just ours. And it's that constant battle to be in time to give the relevant training. I think, what's the statistic now with AI? An answer is only valid for 2 weeks. That's how quick things are. So yeah, that was.
Very good. And I would like our technician perhaps to support me by putting the sticky notes together. If you can, Xavier, if you're there with me, in the meantime, because I don't have the right to do that. Otherwise, I can already move the concept board. Oh my God. Oh God. That's interesting. You see, when you open the concept board, you see all of these replies. That's wonderful, dear participants. Thank you so much for this rich input. Mariana, we have homework to do. You see how many comments. Let's see. In any case, just to assure you that we will record and let's say have all this concept board saved internally so that we make the best use of those. Let me select some. Common dictionary, clear, detailed documentation of knowledge and skills learned. That's interesting. It talks about a common language, clear terminology used, especially if we talk about learning outcomes, as if I think that's an important sticky note. I see also break down complex, broader subjects to easier to digest, highly specific competencies. Maybe the person who added that sticky note could come in as well, take the floor. It's your opportunity to talk to you.
Yes,
Don't be shy. Yes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. And by the way, just a second, Konstantinos, can I ask all of you to turn on your cameras if you wish, and just make it lively as much as possible? I mean, let's not just hide behind, blackface. Ildiko, there you are, my dear, sending your hearts. Thank you for being in this meeting. Konstantinos, the floor back to you. Please tell me what you mean here.
Yes, so for example, I'm a PhD student and I'm working on AI literacy for teachers and how we can, for example, dictate better what they know in the form of micro-credentials. So we have, for example, UNESCO's framework on it, and we're trying to break it down and see specific competencies and 3 teacher professional development programs where teachers can attend and then get these kind of specific micro-credentials for each specific competency, instead of like a broader diploma or a larger professional development program.
I think again the stackability aspect, Mariana, comes as evident for me, like breaking down, let's say, it's like building blocks of one broader subject, but then splits, let's say, separated in more concrete, highly specific competencies. I think that's indeed very relevant, Mr. Tsukas. Thank you very much for sharing. And happy to see other faces. See here, wonderful. Hanne, my dear, what do you think about the activity in the concept board? How does all of this discussion sound to you? If you can also unmute yourself and come in with a reflection.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, when we talk about employer trust, I wonder why nobody talks about data, about labor market outcomes, because I see that as a development in North America, also taken up by employment agencies and taken up by different sectors. And I think that's really a development to see whether the micro-credential lead to improved productivity, whether they lead to employment gain, whether they lead to mobility, and so forth and so forth.
Indeed, the data is like a very important aspect. I mean, how to gather also this labor market data, as you rightly point out. And as you say, if this is on the side of the employment agencies, then how best really to deal with that also from the other end. Quite often, you know, Hannah, we talk a lot with representatives of the education side, the education training side. There are always this bridging the gap between the two, let's say, dimensions, but very good point. Thank you for raising that out, and Mariana can take it on board for the reporting in the plenary, right? Very well. I don't know. Let's see. I have different sticky notes. If any other colleague would like to raise their hand and come back to me, please do so. Just raise your hand and tell me whether you'd like to also report on a sticky note you have written. Otherwise, I can make a selection. Co-construction is a key word here. I see a need for clear standards, proven labor market relevance, transparent assessment, connection to recognized qualification of job profiles. This is quite an important also, let's say, point. Louise, my dear, you have raised your hand. Please, the floor is yours. Please unmute yourself if you can, because we can't hear you.
Hi, thanks a million. Louise McAvan from Solace in Ireland.
Okay.
So some of the issues I suppose coming up with employers would be around that they want to know how long it's going to take if their staff are going to do it. So time obviously is an issue which can come up. Also cost, you know, is it how much does it cost? Is it free, etc. And also just I suppose the whole flexibility in its delivery as well.
Yeah, very good points. Yeah, and also from Solace, you mentioned Solace, right, from Ireland. Your agency has been doing a lot of work, very active. Ireland, I mean, the Irish case is quite innovative. Many other countries in Europe try to follow the example. Becky's nodding the head. We have been discussing that also within the creative and cultures industry. But not only, I would say Ireland, yeah, they are trying to pioneer also green micro credentials. From what I know, we have been discussing with other colleagues of yours, Louise.
Yeah, that's right. We'd have a range of green skills qualifications. They're 50 hours. They're delivered kind of 25 with the tutor directly and 25, you know, self-directed. So yeah, so they would be across kind of resource efficiency, circular economy, sustainable supply chain procurement, you know, so a range of areas. And more recently then we've developed ones in AI, introduction to AI at level 4 for all FET learners, and then others that are more tailored to the workplace, enhancing productivity, etc. So they're just newly validated now recently.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, no, I'm aware of your developments, and it's important. Maybe what you can do is also add a link in the chat, perhaps to what you just mentioned. That's super great. Becky, a reaction to Louise's intervention, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. It just reminded me, I absolutely agree completely. And I just wanted, I've added a couple of post-its That came from an activity, research activity we did recently for the UNESCO module called Digital Library, Policy Recommendations on How to Drive Microcredentials. And one of the recommendations that came out was the need to create long-term impact assessment models so that we can really understand the impact and the benefits and help communicate to industry why there is a buy-in to support them. So I just wanted to highlight that. Yeah, that was together also with creating your local ecosystem, but I mentioned that in my presentation.
Yes, perfect. By the way, I'm not sure if we have Miss Melanie Campbell in that breakout session. If yes, Melanie, do come in because I can't see now when I'm sharing my screen the full participant list. If not, we can have another exchange on your side because it's also interested in a bit in elaborating from their side on an institution that has actually 3,000 apprentices in industry-wide training in construction. Actually, she's referring also to the Green Circle project, and perhaps we will try to share all these information with participants, different links that come from the different breakout sessions. But Melanie, I received a message in that part. Louise, do you still have your hand raised? Do you still would like to? If not, yeah, all right. Wonderful. I'm also aware of the time. We actually have only 4 minutes left. Why the time is my enemy today? Please let me know. I have so many things to talk about with all of you. Ildiko, an insight from your side, perhaps, maybe. Can you share a reflection?
Yes, it was actually me who put in the common dictionary.
Okay.
Because reading between the lines as well from the presenters, I think it is very important that the two sides speak the same language, because no matter how hard one is trying to express those skills and the others are recruiting for that small number of people with the right skills, if they don't define the learning outcomes/skills by the same concepts, including ESCO, that sounds like it's not really perfect in all domains, but that should be probably a reflection that could be forwarded to the ESCO team to look into this more, less complete or well-documented area. Then I think that should be quite important. I'm so glad to see so many references to the learning outcomes everywhere, because I passionately believe that that's the common denominator for micro-credentials. I have another thought on the flying elephant in the room, and the human shortage versus the skill shortage. This is just something that came to mind, but I wanted to share. Do you think it would be interesting to apply the micro-credentials not only for upskilling of people who purposefully want to pursue professions or occupations, but actually these micro-credentials could empower those citizens who will not be able to get the right skill from that diminishing range of professionals, so that they could do certain things themselves, and who know people might discover new passion skills and be able to reskill that way and pursue flexible careers. I don't know if it's far-fetched, but I wonder what Julie thinks about it.
Julie, can you come that? Because we only have 1 minute left, but please come into Ildiko's comment.
I mean, in our sector, at least, again, dealing with electricity, etc., that's one of the risks that we see. We don't want super specialized people to join our sector. We know, we don't want to be cherry pickers. That's not the point, but it's going to be very difficult to include them. And we've had some attempts in some countries of having highly specialized people join the sector, and employers will just not hire them because they're like, well, but you can only do this, and I need something way broader, and I need to train you for 3 years if you need to achieve this. So this is very frustrating. I'd like it to come together, but we've seen that it's not working.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also I see, Ildiko, there's a chat also I comment in the chat. Maybe you can take a look at that. that has been very good. All the discussions that we have, I see that the automatic countdown has started. We will close in some seconds. I would like to really thank you for this short opportunity, let's say, to discuss and exchange. Now Mariana has the most difficult part to a bit sum up, but I will make sure that both the presentations that Becky and Julie showed will be available for you in the project sites. They can be also contacted following this event for further reflections. Wonderful. Thank you all, and see you back in the plenary.
Recording in progress.
Dear participants, we are coming back in the plenary. I know it was short. I'm quite aware, just to tell you that we're back. We will give you the opportunity to take another very short break for 5 minutes. Please stay with us. We have an exciting panel discussion coming up, and we make sure that if you put all your comments that you didn't manage to elaborate in the breakout sessions within the chat, we will make sure to address them. Me and my colleagues, Iraklis, Zelda, and Vasilis, will try to have another look after the event. So rest assured that we will be with you. Just a short break for our reporters to get ready, and we will be back to you soon. Asterios, you do your magic. So thank you all for coming back. So now, Iraklis, where are you? I'm trying to look for you. So, hello, dear colleagues. I know it was a tight opportunity to discuss in the breakout sessions. I can see some comments already in the chat. First of all, just to ensure you that the concept boards we have been using in the breakout session are always there available for you to access them and also see the different messages. At the same time, any links that have been shared in the breakout rooms will be available to you following the end of the meeting. We will make a concrete list with all the different links so that you can have access to that. Now, Iraklis is back. I was looking for you, my dear. I know it was a short break, huh? So please
Yes,
unmute yourself,
you are right.
Iraklis,
You're right, yes.
and take the floor. Yeah.
Okay. Now we will be back from the breakout rooms, and we will have to see what will be reported back from the breakout rooms. So here from the first breakout room, there is Maria Elena Georgalis, who will present to us what has been discussed in the breakout room of Anastasia. Please, Maria Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Iraklis. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely fine.
And are you able to see the screen which I'm sharing?
Yes,
Yes,
and you can do
okay.
it in full mode if you wish.
Yes, let's try again.
Yes, absolutely
Yes,
fine.
brilliant. So yes, my name is Mariana Georgalis, and I was listening intently in breakout room 1, which was on shaping skills for tomorrow, micro-credentials and the labour market. So we heard from 2 colleagues that are very active on this, from Becky, who was speaking on behalf of the creative and cultural industries, and from Julie, who was giving us the perspective from the construction sector. So to try and sum up, there was a lot of discussion, and do take a look at the concept board, which has a lot of it summarized there. But we first looked at when and how micro-credentials can improve skills utilization and career development. Here we found that they are a very useful tool for dealing with urgent upskilling needs in sectors that are rapidly evolving and or are facing shortages. So in the specific context of the creative industries, this is a very diverse sector. We heard from Becky, 99% of companies are SMEs. Upskilling is generally self-directed and non-formal. Whereas in construction, a different set of challenges, but somehow related. There is a low interest in the sector in general, also exacerbated by demographic issues, and a lack of adequate and rapid skills development, particularly in light of new technologies which are emerging and are really requiring very quick responses in terms of upskilling. So in these contexts, the agility, the flexibility, and the self-paced opportunity which micro-credentials afford makes them a good solution. However, we also spoke about challenges, of course, although on the next slide up, we have some solutions too. But just briefly on the challenges, employer buy-in does remain a concern. This is linked to both a lack of understanding from employers on what micro-credentials are, how they can be used, but also a concern around whether they might impose an administrative burden for employers. There were questions around whether micro-credentials may downgrade initial education, which of course is a concern. And there's also a weariness of quick fixes, particularly in construction, for example, where safety is a big concern. Quick fixes might not be very welcome. So moving on to more positive solutions to some of these challenges. We spoke about, what employers and education institutions need to proceed with microcredentials, to recognize them as relevant, etc. I would say the biggest theme emerging was really industry involvement. Co-design with industry is crucial for employers to feel ownership and trust the microcredentials. And linked to this, it's also very important to prove the benefits. We spoke about the need for really kind of long-term impact assessment models to really show how microcredentials are positively impacting the labour market, sharing data on whether microcredentials lead to improved productivity, employment gain, mobility. This will all help to increase trust and buy-in from employers, which was one of the biggest set of challenges we discussed. Clarity is also needed. This links to the kind of issue around, the fear of any administrative burden, understanding what the cost and time commitment is. And then I would say another big theme was connection to existing systems. So a clear connection to recognized qualifications or job profiles. This also, I would say, links to visibility. And we had some very specific ideas in terms of including a specific part in CV templates in Europass, for example, on microcredentials to give them that visibility and that recognition, including microcredentials in final diplomas, in a formal section to say, these microcredentials were taken as part of this diploma. And clearly stated learning outcomes in the certification. This is key. This benefits everyone, I would say, and links also to stackability. So breaking down complex, broader subjects to easier to digest, highly specific competencies, microcredentials forming a part of a formal degree. These are all kind of a part of a process to increase employer buy-in, increase recognition, and allow them to be a very valuable tool in specific sectors to address specific challenges. There was a lot, so I don't know if I've captured it all. Anastasia, colleagues, please feel free to jump in, but that's it from me on Breakout Room 1.
Thanks a lot, Mariana. I know that this is a very difficult task quite often in such a short time, and it's always difficult for everybody to put everything in a nutshell, actually. And now we have together with us Miss Karin Luomi-Messerer, who is going to be reporting us from the second breakout room where we discussed about quality assurance. Please, Karin, now the floor is yours.
Can you already see my presentation?
Yes, absolutely fine. You can put it in full mode. Yes. Okay.
Is it okay now?
No, we have still the not the full mode. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it again. Is it now okay? Do you have it in full mode?
No, we have it in the one with your notes.
Please.
Now?
Okay,
anyway, so I'll just start. I don't know. So I report back from breakout session 2, building trust on the power of quality assurance in microcredentials, which is important because it was one of the second biggest barrier earlier that we had have seen earlier in the Slido exercise. We had 2 presentations, one from Miriam from the Paris-Saclay University, and the other one from Eva Farkas from Hungary, adult education. So the first question was about the forms of quality, external quality assurance that exist for microcredentials offered outside formal education and training. We discussed what kind of quality assurance mechanisms should be there for microcredentials, or are they integrated into the existing system? Are there links between quality assurance in formal and in the non-formal context? So this is still an open question that is being discussed and in development. Another aspect that was mentioned also in the presentation is it's important to have a transparent regulatory framework. That's kind of a precondition, for example, including information on standards for designing micro-credentials. Another aspect that was mentioned is stakeholder involvement, ensuring the labor market relevance. I mean, this is also something that we have heard in Mariana's presentation earlier. Alignment with labor market needs, for example, with the establishment of sectoral skills councils.
Karin, can you change the slide, please? To see
Okay.
that, yeah.
I don't know, it seems...
It's on the second one. Now we see
You
the
don't
second
see the...
slide.
I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, okay. Now we see the... Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, the first question, yeah.
The first question, yeah. Yeah, so stakeholder involvement was one aspect, labor market relevance. The next one was actually the inclusion, the leveling of qualifications in the NQF, of qualifications from offered outside the formal system is already considered as a kind of a form of external quality assurance mechanism. Then further on, the accreditation or licensing of providers of microcredentials or of the institutions designing microcredentials is another external quality assurance mechanism. Then in the Hungarian presentation, for example, it was mentioned that digital assurance and data integrity is important. And they have in Hungary, they issue microcredentials digitally through a state-operated system, which is regulated and can ensure the quality. And a further aspect could be the integration of microcredentials in European or national registers. And then to the second question, and I think this is, you see a couple of, there's quite some overlap between the first presentation and ours. So what can we do to help end users, individual holders, education institutions, employers trust microcredentials? So one thing is, of course, the high reputation of providers. This helps, of course. We heard this also from the presentation from the university in Paris. How to do that? A survey among graduates of other programs and employees could be important for involving them as the main stakeholders for identifying their upskilling, reskilling, training needs. It is important to have transparent information on microcredentials. Again, something that Mariana mentioned, learning outcomes need to be clearly formulated. The assessment and learning outcomes need to be aligned. This can be done in the websites, catalogs, for example. When offering microcredentials, there needs to be a careful selection of the instructors, of the trainers. And then another aspect already mentioned, and it will be mentioned again in the, I think in the third workshop breakout session, ensuring portability and recognition. So NQF inclusion, stackability, credit transfer, digital badges were mentioned. And the further aspect is the monitoring. So the tracking of completion rates, employability outcomes, learner satisfaction survey, stakeholder feedback. This is all important. Mariana has mentioned proving that the impact, that the microcredentials have an impact. This is important to ensure trust. And based on this, continuous improvement cycles are important. And again, here I mentioned the integration in European and national registers, which is also important for the stakeholders, the end users mentioned here. I think this was all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karin, for wrapping up the second breakout room. We are running a bit late, so I would like to invite Monica to take the floor, who is the rapporteur of the third breakout session that they discuss global credentials, making micro-credentials recognizable and portable. So Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Iraklis. I will just briefly share my screen, and I hope that you see it. So I'm reporting back on breakout group 3, which discussed the portability and recognition of microcredentials. And you will probably hear some of the aspects that have been mentioned by Mariana and Karin will also appear in my summary. We had two really very interesting input presentations in our group. The first one was from Peter Cullen from QQI in Ireland, who discussed the enablers, risks, and opportunities related to recognizing microcredentials. And then we had a second input from Meryl Eimers, representing Nuffic in the Netherlands. And she focused on recognizing microcredentials from an ENIC-NARIC perspective, so higher education academic purposes. Just some key aspects from the presentations from the Irish case. So we learned that there's quite a widespread experience with microcredentials or qualifications that can be considered microcredentials in the Irish context in the field of further education and training and higher education. And what's also very interesting is that Ireland has issued a green paper on microcredentials, which is very interesting and which also discusses very important aspects related to the recognition, the portability of microcredentials, such as digital credentialing, but also stackability. And we also discussed a little bit, because it's important for the portability, of course, the quality assurance side. And here I had this one noteworthy quote that says, size alone is not sufficient to determine what level of quality assurance is appropriate. Also emphasizing this aspect that there is no one-size-fits-all approach, of course, given the vast diversity and heterogeneity of what microcredentials can be. What was really, really interesting from the second presentation from Meryl is that she was presenting us a very hands-on approach and tool to support the recognition of microcredentials, because they actually developed a recognition methodology for microcredentials that can be used in a higher education, or that has been used in a higher education context, but could be used also in other contexts. And it is based on 7 criteria, for instance, quality assurance, description and learning outcomes, so the important quality assurance aspects. And it is also in line with the Lisbon Recognition Convention. And this tool is called actually a micro-evaluator based on these 7 criteria. And it issues, based on the data that you feed, actual advice for the recognition of a recognition procedure for microcredentials. That could be like, it advises if all criteria are met, that the microcredentials could be recognized in line with the LRC, so the Lisbon Recognition Convention, or if maybe not all criteria met, it could recommend just a light recognition procedure, for instance. So this was a very practical hands-on tool on how this, how recognition portability of microcredentials could be supported. And then in the discussion that we had in the group, a lot of statements revolved around the aspect, of course, of stackability, how stackability can be achieved, to what extent it is actually pursued in the approaches that institutions pursue, but also this potential risk of overpromising, of course, on stackability that is also present. We discussed, of course, the opportunities related to that, given that there is, of course, a lot of risks that we discussed, but not forgetting the overarching opportunities of making microcredentials portable. That is really rethinking the certification of these small volume learning achievements towards really promoting lifelong learning and giving opportunities for lifelong learning. And in particular in the group, we felt that there was a lot of interest actually in practical guides that could be shared, in sharing experience from others, how they went about really making microcredentials more recognizable, more portable. There's just one aspect that was mentioned in group, this common microcredential framework in the MOOC context, for instance, but colleagues also issued other examples of practical guides that could be checked out and could be analyzed to see if they could be fit for purpose for making microcredentials more recognizable and portable. And I think this is, in a nutshell, the summary from Breakout Group 3. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Monica. And I see that discussions in the breakout rooms were very rich. We would really appreciate if all rapporteurs could share with us their PowerPoint presentation, so to keep notice of everything that was discussed in the breakout rooms. And now we'll give the floor to the rapporteur from the fourth breakout room, Alexander Esperet. They talked about uncharted microcredential, digital innovations beyond formal education. You are the last one. We are running out of time, so please try to really describe everything you discussed in a nutshell. The floor is yours, Alexander.
I'll try to
I'm
keep
sorry
it brief.
for this.
Hang on, let me just share my screen first. And you should be able to see the presentation, all right?
Of course, yes.
Okay, well, we had two very interesting presentations from Colin Tuck and from Michael Nowakowski. Colin Tuck discussed an architecture basically meant as a system that could share data in a secure way from different providers of education, but also trusted official data sources that could perhaps in some points include other government institutions, that provides the value of credentials to those that want to experience and to want to find out what the value is of credentials that someone has learned. In his presentation, he touched on some subjects that were both important for learners and stakeholders. For me, the most interesting points were the importance of having very clearly defined learning objectives. That was the most important point, both for the learners and for the labor market stakeholders. To really understand the value of a credential, it is important that it's very clear what the actual learning objectives of a credential are, and also the fact that course contents need to be kept up to date and that you need to be able to understand what the value of a credential was if it is not a new credential. The presentation of Michael Nowakowski is an approach coming from Poland that's very much bottom up. It's an approach to create a ecosystem in which providers of microcredentials can share the value of and the learning outcomes of credentials from their courses and can share badges that show the value from those credentials to those that want to know what someone has learned. This is made possible through a very high degree of digitalization that is in place in the Polish microcredential landscape. And this has been embraced by a very large number of partners that includes national governments and also a lot of labor market stakeholders. That means that the labor market stakeholders, including major employers, know what the value of a credential is. Sadly, the presentation ran a bit late, so we had quite limited time to discuss the topics that we wanted to discuss as a group. So we touched upon the benefits and the obstacles of issuing credentials in a digital format. The benefits mostly touched on the benefits that have been discussed in other groups. It's the transferability of skills and making microcredentials more visible if they are provided in a digital form. And it's also about creating a reliable data source. If people know that the value of a credential is secure, that the badge or the credential itself comes from a reliable source, it also creates a higher value for the credential itself. There were also some obstacles that we discussed that included the development of those definitions. That was something that was touched upon in the presentation by Colin Tuck, but also a little bit in the discussion afterwards. And one of the main obstacles is the necessity to have a cooperation between a large number of partners. It can either be bottom up, as we saw in Poland, but we also discussed about perhaps doing this top down. There is a need for cooperation between a large number of partners, otherwise the credentials cannot be valued, even if they are digital. So how can we build this interoperability? It's going to touch on three major points. The first one is the development of those definitions that can be carried across systems and across borders. It's going to require a very large degree of engagement by a large number of international stakeholders. That means governments, employers, providers of micro-credentials, to build an ecosystem in which credentials can be compared between one another and the learning outcomes can be compared between one another. And we also briefly touched upon the subject of quality assurance. One of the members in our group provided an example from Slovenia where they provided external quality assurance by the University of Bologna. The main takeaway from our group was that there's a lot of untapped potential, but we need, but enhanced digitalization can improve the value of micro-credentials, but it is going to require a lot of cooperation.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. Before giving the floor to Anastasia, I would like to highlight that your feedback is really important to us. That's why we would like you to fill in an evaluation online survey. The link will be shared with you in the chat for the evaluation survey. So I would like to thank all of our rapporteurs. They had a lot of things to report. They had very hard work to do. We appreciate a lot your support. And without further ado, I will now pass the floor to Anastasia.
Thank you, Iraklis. That was a marathon. And thanks to you and the reporters. Indeed, they did an excellent job. As you already mentioned, what we will do is to let's say collect all the PowerPoint slides that the reporters have shared with us, and we will upload everything in the project websites of CEDEFOP. So please stay with us, and my colleague Maite Santos will be circulating relevant email notifications where you will know when the timing has come that you can get access to all PowerPoint presentations. Also related to a comment shared in the chat, we had in breakout room session 1 concrete discussions on the labor market sector relevance, and we touched upon construction sector and also the creative and cultural industry. So any insights on that matter will also be uploaded in the project page, and you will get also the video recorded session. Of course, your opinion matters indeed, but we still haven't finalized this amazingly interesting discussion. I see we have 230 participants all day connected with us. That's an amazing number. So now we come to the last session of today's meeting, which is a moderated panel discussion. And for that, I would like to ask 3 distinguished guests to join me in this important meeting. First of all, I would like to ask a gentleman, Mr. Simon Roy. He's a higher education policy. There you are, Simon. Hello, nice to see you. Hope you can hear us well. You're working the OECD. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. And just to tell to all participants that, of course, you're the head of the higher education policy in the OECD's Directorate for Education and Skills. But alongside different policy topics you are dealing with, your team has worked extensively on policies to promote the development of micro-credentials in higher education. You are also working with authorities in Czechia on the integrated policy approach to micro-credentials. And before joining the OECD, you have spent many years working on the higher education policy domain at the European Commission. So I find it very important for us that we have you here in this panel. Next to Simon, of course, I would like to ask a lady here that comes from our sister agency, the European Training Foundation, ETF. I'm very happy to welcome Ms. Satu Sarvinen. Sorry if I do not pronounce well your last name. Apologies for that. You're a human capital development expert, dear participant. Satu is a very important also panelist. She's a doctoral researcher at the University of Eastern Finland. She has more than 15 years of experience in education, innovation, and vocational training, focusing on digital learning and micro-credential solutions to support employability and social inclusion, the 2 important aspects that we have been discussing a lot today. And last but not least, we have a lady who is very patiently waiting for us, coming from a different continent, Michelle Marsden. I really appreciate your devotion, the fact that you stay with us. Maybe it's already night in Australia,
it
perhaps. Yes, and Michelle has been specialized in the design, development, strategic implementation of micro-credentials that align learning with workforce capability needs. She has been a senior manager of micro-credentials at engineering education in Australia. So she leads the end-to-end product innovation from market research to launching and ensuring programs deliver measurable value for both learners and employers. She's quite passionate about transforming education for the future of work. And that is why, of course, we have invited her as a panelist. As you've seen, we've been running a bit with doing all the different sessions. So your task now is really to keep the participants' attention there, to keep them still with us. And for that, I have a very important question to ask to you. First of all, let's take some turns, and maybe I can start a bit with ladies first, if you don't mind, Simon, on that. Maybe Satu, you can let me know what is really new about the term micro-credentials, and how do you see their role, let's say, the important role in advancing or perhaps hindering the equity in education? If you can reflect from your side, from the ETF's world, and your special expertise in micro-credentials. I'm all ears to hear what you have to say on that matter.
Thanks, Anastasia, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on ETF. In a way, I think there's not much new with micro-credentials. And in another way, there's a lot new with micro-credentials, and I think it has the potential to be one of the most disruptive innovations in the education. You know, if we manage to work out all the details, I think in the sense where there's nothing new is that we have had a world where we offer short courses, short programs, specific training from the formal and in like private sector. So there's nothing new in that. And we have been able to issue some small certificates with those also previously. So there's nothing new in that. So that's why my focus really is that on the micro-credential, which is not a course or program. It is an evidence of your skill, evidence that you have grasped something. And it is massively impacted by the digital side. And this opens up new opportunities and avenues. And I think from the ETF side, what we can see is that we work with EU partner countries and with some African countries that have a different context, maybe from our EU countries, but there's a lot of unemployment, people working without certification. And from my perspective, really, it's that domain where micro-credentials combined with some digital tools have an enormous potential in really increasing equity in learning. But that requires work on policies, guidelines, quality assurance, and especially building trust around this ecosystem.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. I mean, I already take note of the keywords you mentioned. First of all, you also touched upon this aspect of the digital tools. Indeed, when they are in place, they really can increase equity, as you say. But of course, we also need to consider, the barriers the challenge might face, for example, if they don't have the digital skills or the infrastructure. But for sure, when they are in place, you rightly pointed out to the ensuring equity. And of course, quality assurance, appropriate guidelines, and trust are very important concepts and things that we really need to investigate more. Thank you so much, Satu. Maybe Michelle, you can perhaps add or share with us, your reflections from Australia, perhaps, and the area you're representing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hello everyone. I guess from our perspective with our micro-credentials, we do look at that whole trust thing, and we've talked a lot about trust today, and we really look at the assessed practice. So it's really about the skills of our engineers. So we understand that the foundational qualifications are a really critical role for our engineers and when they're qualified. But once they've been they've started work and they're starting to create that career trajectory, it's how do we actually create those micro-credentials that help them to actually get that next job or get that promotion or are valued by their own industry or employment. So I think it's a really, I think that there's new components in it. I think there's new ways in which employers are embracing the micro-credentials. I think there's some sectors that are still slow to the party, but I think also there's a lot of industries that are really picking it up and really running with it and embedding it within their workforce, within their promotions and within their retention and that sort of thing. So I think there's some new components with that, and I think it can only advance the education sector and the skill and upskilling of engineers in our perspective anyway.
Yeah, that's super interesting that your perspective exactly comes from the engineering side, Michelle. I find that quite useful. And as you rightly pointed out, that how best we can really showcase the skills that, particularly with the engineers, what are the skills they really possess. That's very useful. Quite often when we engage with our stakeholders, we always discuss, of course, the labor market side, the industry, the need for the concrete skill set. Of course, it depends on the occupational sector. But what is really happening, I'm wondering, on the other side of the coin, or of the spectrum, the education side. And this is where perhaps Simon can come in, because you're representing, from OECD, like the higher education, let's say, a broader area. Maybe from your perspective, Simon, how what already Michelle and South already pointed towards sound to you? How does it resonate with your, let's say, experience and your perspective, always considering this bigger aspect of allowing or perhaps hindering the equity in the broader sense of learning, in that sense, Simon?
Thanks, Anastasia. Nice to be here today. I guess from our perspective, I mean, the question about what's new and then the equity question, I mean, there's two elements there. Obviously, I guess in terms of where we see the potential with microcredentials is a sort of a marketing, a labeling of a bundle of skills in a more harmonized way, both within individual education and training sectors, and then potentially across sectors, and then potentially even internationally, right? So we're joined by people from multiple countries. It's very good to have colleagues from Australia here, because it's not purely European phenomenon. It's something that's happening across countries, and obviously many countries online from the European Training Foundation network. But that sort of having a sort of a common badge, if we compare it, say, in Europe to developments in higher education, where we introduced many decades ago now, but there's sort of a common language around, we have a bachelor's degree. We're now talking about what the common language around a short cycle, a 2-year degree is. So having this common language of, well, there's also this smaller bundle of learning outcomes that we can use and we can refer to. That's clearly something is new, even if small bundles of learning have existed across sectors in multiple places for a very long time. So that's really what's good here, is about having a sort of trying to develop the common language. As we've heard throughout the discussions today, that is the thing that is very tricky, because everyone has a little bit of a different view, and building trust, therefore, is that building trust element is a bit like bringing those views together. And there was a discussion earlier about, which I think is quite fundamental, about, are we talking about, in terms of building trust and how we do that, are we talking about the building trust in the learning, in the outcomes, or are we building trust in the process that leads to those outcomes? And there was a distinction and almost a discussion there. Ultimately, what we do in formal education and training is we look at the process as a proxy for the learning outcomes, right? Let's be very clear about that. We do not, in most systems, assess the outcomes on a sort of system-wide level. We assume that individual education and training providers, wherever they are the ones doing that and making the assessments, individual assessors and so on, are making that. So I think there's some things we need to sort of talk about, but that's a kind of it. We'll come back to that, but I think that's the key. It remains the key thing that we still need to be building is reaching a consensus about what the components are that are needed for a sort of a functioning and trust-based system.
No, very, very well said. Thank you, Simon. I think that's very important. Also, the fact that you mentioned learning outcomes quite often. Also, we discuss it as being like the common language, as you rightly pointed out. And for me, this idea of reaching to a consensus and really using a common language is not an easy thing. As you rightly pointed out, there are different interpretations, different conceptualizations. Quite often, we see a tension between the public and the private sphere, how the thing is really conceptualized at the formal settings. Then if you go to the non-formal part, to the informal, then again, there are different considerations we need to take on board. That is why agreeing at least on some common elements. I think in that sense, the European Council recommendation on the topic, what that's important, let's say, process managed to achieve was somehow to showcase, at least in Europe, but also more broadly, if we can agree at least on some standard elements that are related to the assessment, to the way the learning outcomes achieved, can be represented, to the trust, who is the provider, if it's an accredited body, all of these aspects can be considered helpful to support member states and countries beyond, to discuss this ecosystem somehow. But very, very good and valid points. At this point in time, if you allow me, the three panelists, to also get a bit the ambience and the feeling from our participants, just if I can ask my magician, because as you know, I have my friend who is doing magic in the background, to again generate another slide that I had just prepared for my participants, and just a bit to give the opportunity to the people who are still with us to answer to some very few questions that we have. Thank you so much. You can see again the QR code in your screens. You can scan it with your mobile phones or use the, let's say, the concrete details. And of course, we would like to see them also in the chat. So what I would like at this point in time, and before I ask that question to my panelists, I would also just get the feeling a bit from the participants on a scale of 1 to 5. How confident are you that micro-credentials will become a mainstream form of learning recognition in the next 5 or 10 years or so? And Alicia, my dear colleague, if you're still around, just pop up here and join our discussion and tell me what you think about the results.
Yes,
Let's
hello.
see. There you are. Maybe my colleagues can spotlight Alicia as well so that we can see her. Thank you for that. Alicia, what do you say about these replies? Are people confident enough? What is happening?
Yeah, I see some optimism here. Yeah, I mean, after hearing from our experts and panelists, I think we can all reflect a little bit on what the future of micro-credentials might be. I see that although most people are optimistic, there's still some wariness. So makes sense because we've also talked about practical challenges here. So
It's quite nice to see that at least 40% of the participants think that they are quite confident that indeed there is a future with this new instrument. It cannot be new. What Simon and other panelists said, it's not really something new, but what is really new, like how do you really make visible the skills and competencies you have been acquiring from the different learning contexts and the different processes, and the idea of having a common language, as we said. So that's an interesting result. Thank you for that. The magician can also show us the second question, please. What we have prepared. Wonderful. So according to the participants of this webinar, what should be the top policy priority for micro-credentials, taking into account, of course, the national context where you all come from? Is it quality and trust that we really need to work more towards or is it other elements? Maybe the magician can scroll down the different options and can show to the to the other panelists all the different, let's say, options available, if I may. Let's see, Alicia, what is happening here.
Yeah, we see here top ranked quality and trust.
Oh. But also recognition,
yes.
you see.
It's a tie here. Yeah, very interesting. Also makes a lot of sense. We've talked about this.
And I would really like to ask all participants to really access the Slido and share with us your reflection, because this is not just a Slido that we do randomly. We will record the replies and we make sure that our research, at least from CEDEFOP side, is trying, and we'll try to capture the different perspectives as we can, take into account the research tools we have, of course. But I don't know, Sadhu, what do you think about this result as well? Let us engage in this collective discussion. What do you think about that, quality and trust?
Well, definitely. And I like the fact that we talk about quality and trust, because quality is something, it's a process. We can work on quality assurance and mechanisms. Trust is a feeling. So in a sense, it's harder to impact. So that, and it links to this, I think, this recognition across borders, which is also naturally something that we look at very much, because with the workforce mobility, with people moving from place to place, the ability to travel to another country and be able to show in a way that people trust and recognize that you have some skills is extremely vital. And I think building this quality assurance mechanism, which is extremely vital in any way, but we have to be careful a bit there too, is important, because I've been thinking about this actually this week a lot, that when we build a quality assurance, do we want to quality assure individual certificates, or should we focus on the processes of how to do and manage, coming back to also what Simon says, and to do that, build trust? And then something that came out in one of the breakout rooms, which I thought was fantastic, like what do we measure at the end, in the sense that do we increase employability, do we increase, personal income or whatever. So I think those are things we also need to consider as part of building quality trust, and then through that enable this recognition across borders.
Yeah, also what you just said, what do we measure? Quite often we talk about the labor market outcomes. How can we translate that for the actual individual? Would that mean career progression, like recognition in employment? Maybe also we go back to the education side, can he or she stack different units and progress in further learning? So there are different outcomes, let's say, that have to be somehow measured, translated, as you rightly pointed out. Wonderful. And then the very last open question that I have for the participants, if we can also say it, yes, I would like all of you just to use either 2 or 3 words, or even just one word from the participant side. What is this one key action that from all the things that we have mentioned throughout the day that is really needed to strengthen the role of micro-credentials? And you see now, Alicia, what this slide will do. It will show, because it's like an open question, mainly the different words coming in. And please, I would like participants to really fill it in. Write down your ideas as they come. Don't worry if it's right or wrong. Everything is correct. And as long as you point to the multiple answers in one word, then that is why we see it really big in that sense. And Alicia, what do you see coming up?
I see a big recognition in red.
But also cooperation, you see.
Yes, very quality, acceptance, collaboration,
and cooperation within the different stakeholders, the different people that have to be engaged. It can be company, it can be ministries, different providers, let's say, but also other terms. Michelle, what about that slide? What can you tell me now? What do you see happening? What are the keywords you identify?
I think some of the ones that I'm not seeing is transportability and transferability of skills using micro-credentials. And that's one of the things that, from an engineering perspective, if we're looking from transitioning from, high emission sectors into green sectors, how do we actually use micro-credentials to have those skills recognised and have them be able to transfer into a different sector? So I think there's some of the things there that I'm not seeing, but recognition is something for us that's right up there. That's exactly why we went into micro-credentials, is to recognise the skill of our engineers across sectors and against a standard that can be done across different industry segments.
Yes, very well, very well. Transferability, and I see also, I think that was also mentioned somehow in the slide. I also note that down, and also on the standard part, we also saw that coming up in the first slide that we were using very well, Michelle. Wonderful. I would like to ask participants to keep adding. The polls will stay open; they are not closing, so we can also unshare the screen at the moment. Then we go back to the discussion, and then Simon, and actually thank you, Alicia, also for being with us now. And then we can come back to the 3 panelists and just one final statement from all 3 of you on my very important question. So now we'll ask with Simon first. My important question is actually, how do you see the role of micro-credentials evolving in the next 5 or 10 years or so? Just think, just reflect. Do you see, again, there's a future? We already heard from the participants, but from your research perspective, from the UCD side, Simon, how do you see the role of micro-credentials evolving? But like shortly in one statement, if you can.
One statement from an OECD official. No, I mean, very quickly, I guess, I think we broadly see a positive future. But just going back to the importance of demonstrating both quality and also the sort of impact, we do need to, in that 5-year, certainly, and even a bit beyond, we need to focus a lot on demonstrating the effect, piloting different ways of implementing, I think, developing the policy frameworks. We've still got a lot to do in that respect. We need to, as I say, sort of pilot implementation in different sectors, in different approaches, I think. So there's a bit of a tension between, like, do we regulate everything now? Have we sorted it? And do we actually test what works and then feedback? So I think that is really what I see as what we need to be doing in that time frame that you talked about. I think it's positive, but we need to demonstrate that.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. That's very useful. Indeed, it's positive, but piloting, testing what works really matters. Perfect. Satu, I see you agree, but what about you? The same question. What do you think is the role of how the role will evolve in the future in that sense?
From my perspective, when I look at the countries that we work with and the problems that they are trying to solve within their education systems, I think microcredentials have a huge opportunity to bring added value and really help solve some of the tricky questions that they have. And at the same time, I think this overall global cooperation, like Simon talked about, having a common language and so forth, is extremely important so that we don't develop, one system for Africa and another system for Europe, but somehow we have a common language. And I think that can have a potential to really bring things forward. That being said, there's a lot of work to be done, as Simon also said, in terms of having legislation, policies, practices, and so forth in place. So well, I think I'll be employed, which is fantastic.
Thank you, dear Satu. That's super nice. Also, I underline the idea of the common language use, the legislation that quite often needed in some places. Let's see also with the skills portability initiative, how is that will be impacting the micro-credentials discussion and all, let's say, surrounding, developments. But very well, thank you for that. And then Michelle, last word from your side about the future.
Thank you.
Australia, sometimes we in Europe, we find it's like a different continent, but please tell us from your angle, what is the situation in the future?
I guess from an Engineers Australia perspective, we'd be looking at industry targeted skills, and we'd be looking at the skill-based modules rather than full qualifications. And I think looking forward, and I think if we're talking about the 5 or 10 year mark, it's really that stackable into job profiles, possibly rather than qualifications. So really looking at how those micro-credentials might stack into a job profile going forward.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, indeed, it's always the lens we are using to discuss about the industry side, the demand side, as I was always saying about the scenarios for micro-credentials in the future at the very beginning of the event. Wonderful. I would like to thank you all so much, like the panelists, for being with me in this last part of the session, but please stay a couple of minutes more because we have an important lady that joined the CDFOP team. Of course, is our new head of department, Miss Irene Mandel. She will join me in this last concluding session, and just before giving the floor, there she is for the technicians spotlight. Hello, Rene. Thank you for being with me. Hope you have been enjoying it so far.
It was a great event. Yes, thank you.
Very rich, very rich exchange. I'm trying to check the chat comments. It's really amazing activity. But just before I give you the floor, of course, Irene, to do the closing part, just from my side, I would like, first of all, to promise you that we will, let's say, collect all the PowerPoint presentations that have been shared today. We will add it in our project webpage. My team will make sure that we will record all messages in the chat, the different comments you have been sharing with us, and of course the important links that showcase a lot of activity that is taking place surrounding micro-credentials. From my side, it's very important also to underline a nice metaphor that I actually had the opportunity to listen to during my breakout session. One of the speakers mentioned micro-credentials with a UFO metaphor, and I wanted to share it with the plenary. That means that can it be like an unidentified formation object, meaning there are still open questions to ask. We can still ask whether micro-credentials are here perhaps to downgrade, let's say, formal education and training. Are they there perhaps to promote quick fixes? Yes, but if not, can they really support the upskilling and the reskilling of workers, and can they be really relevant for the low qualified, especially the ones that are really in high need of integration in the labor market and in education and training? So there are still questions we are trying to reply, and with our research and all the data collection exercises we have been doing, and very let's say important communication with the representatives of member states in Europe, we will try to continue this discussion. And of course, from my side, I would like to thank you all and my team, and of course give the floor now to Irene to officially close the event. Irene, the floor is to you.
Great. Thank you, Anastasia. I won't keep you long, I promise. Just also from my side, let me thank you for joining us today. I think it was 4 intensive hours, not only filled with magic, but also with a lot of information that we have received. As always, I think there was not sufficient time for discuss a very important and relevant topic, but rest assured, we keep on working on the topic and there is more to come. So what as CEDEFOP we have in the pipeline on that topic is collecting empirical evidence on the diversity of micro-credentials offered outside the formal education and training system. So there is more to come from our side, so stay tuned. You have already seen in the chat links of the past research that CEDEFOP have been doing. We will share that again together with what Anastasia said, the presentations, the recording, other links that were shared in that meeting. And we hope that we can count on you also in the future for your input, because this is very important for us, that from you as the practitioners, as the people engaged with the topic, you help us shaping our research and getting input for that. As a last point, to remind you again, if you have not yet done so, to please fill our little evaluation and feedback survey. It's very important for us that we get some flavor from your side, what you like, but also pointing out where we could improve further. And last but not least, let me take the opportunity to ask the CEDEFOP team who was decisive in preparing and running this meeting. So just to name a few, of course, there is Anastasia, Iraklis, Zelda, Vasilis, Maite, Alicia, but also Katarina, Iveli, Christina, and the magicians hidden in the background. So thanks everyone for your support, both the active team, both your active audience. Stay tuned with us. We close the meeting now. Have a nice day and keep on connected with CEDEFOP. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, Anastasia.
Goodbye.
Recording stopped.